as the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Winter Series makes its way away from the mile-and-a-half circuits. It makes its way towards Hollywood. Tonight, more than 40 drivers get all set to go for qualifying this evening on the 2-mile Auto Club Speedway circuit. We're just a few moments away from the start of qualifying here on RaceSpotTV as drivers continue to prepare to race under the lights. Who's going to come away with the pole and who's going to come away with a good start to their point season 2 races in, coming into race number 3 tonight. We'll find out and more tonight here on RaceSpotTV when we come back right after this. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the beautiful Auto Club Speedway for the first of 2 races on 2-mile circuits this season for the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Winter Series here on RaceSpotTV. Tonight, 40-plus drivers get all set to go to race 120 laps under the lights tonight here on Auto Club Speedway after starting the first 2 races of the season on the mile-and-a-half circuits. Who's going to take the momentum here tonight on this 2-mile circuit? We're about to find out in the next few moments. Justin Prince alongside Randy Cheneth, Hugo Wees in third seat. Temperature continues to drop across the circuit, down to Fahrenheit prior to tonight's green flag. 57% humidity with partly cloudy skies as the track temp is expected to drop as the temperatures drop tonight on this 2-mile circuit for the 120-lap race tonight, Randy.
It's going to be a lot of fun seeing this happen. Unfortunately, it's already a little bit too late in the evening. The sun's already most of the way down. This would have been our nice little first teaser at a bit of a day-to-night race, especially getting ready for the likes of the 600 and some of the other races that happen in the NASCAR stable that start under the sun and finish under the lights. But this time, starting it pretty much under the twilight and then finishing under pure darkness. So it's going to be an interesting 120-lap run to the end.
For some drivers, they might be having the first times practicing in these conditions. Practice started off in-game at 6:20 p.m. Temperatures have dropped, skyline has dropped. Heading into this race, this is what it's looking like here so far this season. Right now, the championship standings are as they run. Just 5 points separate the top 4. David Comstock, Brandon Bowie, Trey Edson, along with Jason Jacoby is your top 4, with Anthony DeBarro rounding out the top 5. Larry Pace, Chad Coleman, Mike Kelly, Nick Cohen, and EJ Oruke round out the top 10 in the point standings after 2 races so far. And for a lot of these drivers, they've been having consistent runs so far. But again, first time these drivers are at a 2-mile circuit this season. And it's a very tough one, to say the least. The tougher of the 2-mile circuits on the season, and a very bumpy one to boot as well.
Yeah, Fontana and Michigan very, very close, very similar. A lot of people find Fontana easier. A lot of people find Michigan easier. Typically a fan of Fontana personally. Then again, I'm a bit of a hometown hero to that one, living just a couple of hours south of it. But it's a very fun track, big track, works for pretty much all the NASCAR cars, especially these Xfinity cars. We expect that we get a little bit of side-by-side at least some point during this race, because there's a lot of real estate out there to fan these cars 3 or 4 abreast.
Still a few moments before we take the starting grid for tonight. 27 drivers have taken time so far, but multiple others have struggled in qualifying. Someone that has not struggled after struggling last week at Atlanta, qualifying 20th, Jason Jacoby, currently slotted up in P2, as we're about to take a look at your starting grid for tonight's action. 120 laps under the lights tonight at Auto Club Speedway. Let's take a look at your starting grid for the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Winter Series Race 3. Trey Edson starts on the pole tonight with a 40.243, while Jason Jacoby was slower than his time in practice a few minutes ago, dropping to second to start on the front row tonight. In row number 2, Nelson Rivera will try and lead some laps tonight. He'll start alongside the Canadian and Larry Pace, with EJ Aroke rounding out the top 5 tonight, with Chad Coleman starting off in the third row. Shane Ewing and David Comstock, your points leader, starts in row number 4. We're rounding out the top 10, Bobby Wetzel and Brandon Bowie. They'll look to try and pick up on the 1/10 loss in terms of time. Timothy Johnston and Glenn Campbell follow them off inside the Baker's dozen, while Anthony DeBarro and Scott Simley are in 13th and 14th. Jimmy Coleman will try and make some moves in the number 3 Toyota, with Mike Kelly starting in the middle of the field in 16th. Anthony Calatoni's in 17th, with Bobby Terrell from the Mid-South region in the 18th spot. Doug Ruth will run the number 43 tonight with the STP colors. We'll get to that reason in a few moments. Chris Gabot will start inside the top 20. Sitting outside the top 20, Brian Boris Cook and Donnie Leah will look to try and pick up the pace near the end of the recorded times. Michael Keaton and Jonathan Lockhart as well in the 40.6 club for qualifying 3/10 off. Brian Workman along with Tyler Overstreet will follow them off, with the final qualifying recorded time being Nick Silver. The rest is in terms of positioning. Joshua Williams, new to the series, will make his first start. Known for driving a majority of his Menards cars, will make so tonight. Steve Shaheen will start, in 29th, with Tommy Ryan inside the top 30. Nick Cohen's going to have a lot of position to try and make forward. 31st tonight, alongside Matthew Wilson-Bach. Milt Matisse will start 33rd alongside Joey Katina, with Patrick Colby and Dwight Beverly following them off. To round out tonight's grid, it will feature Sean Dewar making one of his first starts of the season, Corey Chester, and rounding out the 40-car grid tonight, Randy Yoakum, Jason Barham, a huge grid tonight. And this could be an interesting one tonight. 39 drivers overall have taken the grid. One driver, unfortunately, has missed the start in Corey Chester, so he'll have to potentially start from the pits as they roll their way down the backstretch. And Randy, in terms of this race, a lot of strategy can come together, especially with how we have seen some of these races play out. Fuel, give or take, around 43, 45 laps max. It could be at the very least a 2-stopper tonight.
Going to be a long one of the longer tracks, and at 120 laps, it's really not much shorter in terms of lap numbers. Through the regular races, we get at the 1.5 milers, so you do that math there. It's an extra probably 50, 60 miles they're doing in this thing compared to some of the other races that they go to over the course of the season. This pace car is getting ready to pull off. Trey Edson's about to get on it.
Trey Edson leads them on the inside line. He'll drive the Kickass Beef Jerky black and orange machine on the left side on the inside line. Jason Jacoby and his YouTube stream car, the number 39 machine, will start on the outside line. As they approach the restart zone, green flags up in the flag stand. They're off and away. Even Spiels to start things off tonight for the third race of the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Winter Season Series season. Very clean start so far as Jacoby falls his way to the inside, but you can see everyone trying to defend in the high side, in fact, allowing Larry Pace to get a huge run down the back as the caution flags quickly out. Multiple cars spinning down the backstretch. Spinning around Tommy Ryan in the number 99 machine. Coleman in the number 3 also stopped to the backstretch, and we are already under caution, not even 2 turns in.
Yeah, big incident there coming off the final corner. Not exactly sure what happened just yet, but with the close racing that happens this early on, I think it was Jimmy Coleman, first car to actually end up going around, and we ended up just making one of the crucial mistakes you can make here at Auto Club, and that's catching that apron coming off for turn 2. You often want to keep that thing pinned right on that white line. That's what he's attempting to do best as he possibly could, and well, just dip that left front tire underneath that white line. Just enough of a transition there coming off the banking that the moment that happens, there's really not much you can do, and you're kind of a passenger when you eventually start to lose it.
And I think the driver that got the worst of it was Tommy Ryan. As we continue to look at this here, you're looking at Coleman, as you see, does hit the apron, gets a little help in the end, and then Tommy Ryan nowhere to go, completely destroyed the front end of his number 99 machine. So the Northern Tool and Equipment number 99 Chevy completely demolished on lap number 1.
Yeah, really unfortunate for him. It's going to be, you know, that's kind of a killer to start your season off like that, especially one of these cool races. The points isn't what matters. This is the first really nice looking race under the twilight, under the light on the new build. That's a really important thing for him, is being taken out of this one.
Came into tonight 18th in the standings, just one prior incident from car contact, as we're under caution once again. Currently just 2 laps in. A couple drivers are pitting for fresh tires as pit road is open, but currently Trey Edson still leads. Jason Jacoby, Larry Pace, Nelson Rivera, EJ Arup rounding out the top 5. Not a lot of changes in position, as a majority of the drivers outside the top 20 are down in the pit lane. Here is the changes after one corner. A majority of the spots gained were by some of the drivers who started on the outside line here tonight.
Yeah, and that's what you're going to expect when you only run through a couple corners, is mostly just those people that were side by side. Someone noses ahead of one of them and then back and forth. So these guys are they're basically going to line up exactly how they started. A couple drivers will be swapped from the inside line to the outside line and vice versa. Only a couple really people that picked up any spots, but probably the bulk of them picking up spots in the incident. Both Tyler Overstreet and Nick Silver, they picked up about 3 spots. And you have one driver actually big gains on that opening. Joey Gattina, 34th up to 26 just through that first sequence of corners. Something tells me he was the one driver that really missed that incident back there.
I think partly that and partly, as mentioned, everyone around 26 on back part of me went to the pit. Steve Shahan led them down, followed by Matthew Rosenbach and Dwight Beverly behind them as they line back up behind the pace car. Again, no drivers a lap down. Not taking the start was Corey Chester, so he is currently looking like a did not start. Tommy Ryan has just pulled his car into the garage and will get a DNF, his first on the 2018-19 season, as they follow on the pace car, getting ready to go double file. As we get a chance to possibly reset this race, just a couple laps in, 1 to go for the restart. What are you expecting now that these drivers, after getting a very quick caution, get the chance to prepare for what could be the real race from here to start up on lap 5?
It's hard to say. I mean, that incident wasn't really the cause of any hard racing or anything like that, or the cars even being too hard or hard to drive or being scary loose. That was just one driver unfortunately making a slight mistake and losing it because of it. So it's really hard to say what we're going to expect to see. I mean, I still think we're going to see a very racy racetrack, especially here at cold weather Fontana Speedway. I think we're going to see some good racing, probably side by side. And based on that start, I think Jacoby's likely going to let Trey get away and just cycle in single file here.
Possibly right now, as you see them follow on the backstretch. Trey Edson's been very strong so far. Jason Jacoby as well so far this season in regards to that. Well, Larry Pace currently sits in the 3rd spot after a great start to the start of tonight's race in the 00 machine, with Nelson Rivera starting on the outside of row 2 in the hum by Verizon Ford. You're following along with Larry Pace. Can he try and get a similar run that he got on the restart last time? He nearly was starting position himself for a pass down the inside, down the backstretch to start off the race, rather. But now, we're about to start our first restart of the race tonight. Lap number 5 of 120 as the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Winter Series gets back underway under the lights at Auto Club. This time, Edson is off and away. Jacoby can't time it up as we're back underway as Larry Pace got a really bogged down start as Jacoby will try and move down to the bottom.
EJ is doing his best down low, trying to make sure that 00 doesn't get too bogged down on the start. He was pushing that 00 Sim500 Kickass machine, and now he's going to get up the inside of the straight machine of Jason Jacoby. Not going to quite be able to get there, so Jason will hold on to that second spot in the field to head into turn 3 at full speed for the first time.
And Trey Edson leads them down into turn 3. Still multiple drivers battling double wide, pushing up Chad Coleman as he gets a little bit of a tough tap from Shane Ewing to keep himself straight. Nelson Rivera, meanwhile, is dropping like a rock as multiple drivers line to the bottom side as we finish our first lap under green with the top 5 single file now.
I think this is what you'd expect to see here, especially amongst your race leaders. We've seen it every single race this season. The first few drivers up front, first couple laps, they just like to get it somewhat single filed out. First side-by-side fight between Nelson Rivera and Brandon Bowie. Bowie doing his best and going to end up actually making that single file as well. Next is David Comstock and Bobby Witzel. They're going to be wheeling it side-by-side with, I believe that's the Gary Mercer trucking machine and the Valvoline car down low. And let's see, is it going to be up top or down low that reigns supreme? This is the thing that's so interesting about this track. Comstock actually finds the wall ever so slightly, pushing a little bit wide. He chops the nose off that Valvoline car. Very, very aggressive blocking maneuver there. Lucky he didn't pit maneuver himself down the inside.
Yeah, I think very lucky as well, as you see how some of the drivers have the kind of preferred situations. Right now, that bottom line, you'll see more drivers head towards that white line, but right now, in the early portions of this run, currently, a lot of drivers, if you're on the top line on the exit of the corner, you're more than likely going to get the run down the backstretch to get the pass done.
Yeah, that's going to be the big thing. There's a couple ways you can really make passes here. A lot of them will happen going into turn 3. Of course, you have that long curve front straightaway here, so if you can get a run coming off turn 4 and get up the inside, you can really take a lot of the distance out of what you travel before you get to turn 1 and maybe make moves there. So it's really, really interesting to see the different line drivers will take here trying to make moves stick. It's really what's really fascinating about the racetrack here, and the same with the one in Michigan. Both these NASCAR-style cars and open wheelers really do put on good shows at this place. We need to get the open wheelers back in my opinion. Jason Jacoby, though, was very close to the back of Trey Edson as they went into turn 1, both taking slightly different lines through the first corner of the racetrack. Trey was a little bit wider, running the sort of second line, whereas Jacoby, like he is now, right up against the inside. Let's see if they do that this time as well. See if that number 10 car maybe carries just a slightly wider arc through the corner, and actually they're basically in each other's tire tracks this time through 1 and 2.
Yeah, right now Jacoby trying to close back on up. He got within 1 car length for that 1 lap ago. Again, for timing and scoring, be sure to follow on RaceSpotTV/timing to see how this is unfolding right now. 0.2 of a second separate, just underneath 0.3 overall between the top 2 last time by. This time by, right now Jacoby, who does have the faster lap time overall, is just at about the same ballpark. This time by, in terms of lap time, a full 10th faster with the draft from the back of Trey Edson. You see there, just underneath that, faster 2 of the past 3 laps.
Yeah, now Jacoby's going to get that run off turn 2 and going to work this slipstream down the back straightaway. And these beat cars, you're going to be using a lot of draft here. You don't have quite the top end that the A cars have. You're only getting up to about 187, only 187. But that's enough to where you're not really lifting as hard for the corners, as much grip as these cars have. Jacoby wants to try his hand on the outside. Not going to be able to make it work just yet. Might have a little bit more momentum here. Coming down in towards this front straightaway. Might be getting the door opened on him. And indeed, Trey Edson's going to let him slip on through. So Jacoby will lead here at lap number 11.
New leader, Jason Jacoby. Trey Edson still led at the line last time by, but he looked like new Jacoby was picking up the pace. So Jason Jacoby now into the race lead. Now, his focus now, if you're Trey Edson, can I keep away possibly from Larry Pace and EJ Aruka, who are in 3rd and 4th spots and chasing quick as Larry Pace closes on behind? Well, Jason Jacoby gets ready to lead his first overall lap of the race, passing by the front stretch. He'll do so right here, finishing off lap 11, heading on to just lap 12 of 120.
And these guys now, they're all lined up, very similar looking cars. Two of them I think are teammates, and EJ and Trey Edson, but you also have Larry Pace sort of in between of them as well, all with a bunch of KA Beef Jerky logos on the sides and hoods of those machines, and they get themselves slightly spread out as they go down the back straightaway. This time, Jacob getting himself a nice little gap. I do see a side-by-side fight, though, between Anthony DeBarro and Glenn Campbell. Of course, DeBarro been part of our leading fights pretty much every race this season through the first two, both at Atlanta and at Las Vegas. This time, he finds himself a little bit deeper in the pack, but just picks up a nice spot on Glenn for that top 10. So the Coors Light Camry is slowly moving his way through the field.
DeBarro had started 13th, now up in the top 10 after going side-by-side with Glenn Campbell as he'll try and ride on the inside, falling on board with Glenn Campbell as you see Campbell trying to hold on to the quarter panel to try and hold on for the run. Campbell nearly scrubs the wall, and that knocks Bobby Wetzel nearly out of shape down the backstretch, so he'll lose a spot right on behind while seeing that happen to Glenn Campbell.
And that can be a very dangerous thing here. Actually, I think Bobby Wetzel just got loose all by himself the way that car kind of lost it. So you had Glenn Campbell getting all sorts of tight, and the 9 car behind him getting all sorts of loose coming off of turn 2. So the tires likely starting to go away from these guys just a little bit as EJ's looking to maybe make a move on Larry into turn 1. No, he's not going to even really think about that too much. Just doing a bit of mere harassing while the action picks back up back here towards the tail end of your top 10 and into the top 15. Those Wetzel and Mike Kelly are now duking it out side by side down the back straightaway.
They actually nearly tapped bumpers, it appeared, some of the cars that are in that mix right now. Kelly not on the preferred line. He's going to try and dive it back in on the inside, riding his way towards the white line, as Bobby Terrell's going to cut him off on the inside line. But the momentum, once again, Bobby Wetzel on the high side for the corner exit. Back side by side, Bobby Wetzel should very likely get the secured spot at the scores pylon. Yes, indeed. He'll be in 14th at the pylon as they're about even in terms of pace. Wetzel just cannot clear Mike Kelly yet because he is defending aggressively on the inside line.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's happening is Mike Kelly just about gets clear and chops the nose off that number 9 Valvoline car second time. We've seen that car almost get the front fascia removed. Now the 12 is Scott Simley. We're going to have a peek up the inside in towards turn 3 on Bobby Wetzel. Wetzel getting absolutely mauled out there by everybody. Just the race not going his way, just always drawing the short straw in traffic, it seems. And both the cars in front of him find the wall, Mike Kelly and Scott Simley. So now the 9 car maybe going to be on the better end of that luck and might pick those couple spots back up.
And Donnie Lee is going to gain a spot as well as that's all unfolding. And that was something that a lot of drivers, no matter the weather, were doing in practice, slamming the turn 4 exit of the wall. And a lot of them, like Anthony Calatoni, in that mix where drivers were tapping the wall, able to, unfortunately for them, get their first damage of the race, as that has opened up the door and momentum for Donnie Lee is already up to 14th because of all that contact of the right corners of your screen just exiting the picture.
And Donnie Leah didn't have a great race last week out at Atlanta. Was one of the drivers, I believe he brought out our first caution, if memory serves right. So things are going a little bit better for him this time out. Up 8 spots, and you know, talking about people ended up plowing the wall. It's very, very easy here at Auto Club to burn up your front tires, especially with all the dirty air. You see these big packs of cars, especially in the mid-pack, big, long, 10, 15, 20 car long trains. That's going to be giving you a lot of dirty air if you're in the midst of that, and it's going to be, you're going to be wanting to work the wheel awful hard. Probably going to be seeing you really kill those front tires and really ending up generating that push. Not to mention just the way you like to do throttle application here. It's not a big lift into the corner. You're probably not being too gentle getting back to throttle either. It's probably a big stomp, and it's so long before you end up actually getting to that, getting close to that wall. It's one of those situations, I've heard about it in IndyCar in reference to the dirty air. You really have to know you're going to hit the wall before you ever feel like you have to get hit, that you're going to hit the wall. It's almost a seat of the pants thing. It's the only way you can really have any time to be able to correct for it and be able to end up actually fixing that tight issue if it's something you're struggling with. If you wait until the wall's right up on you, you're going to have fun slamming that right front up against it.
I absolutely agree with you and have seen that happen a lot of times, especially at a track like this where the wall can come up out of nowhere. You're looking at the mix of battling for the top 25 as Kelly gets in contact. Go around, goes Dwight Beverly as the caution flag is out. As we're back under caution on lap 19, Dwight Beverly gets the worst of it on the front end, and the Coastal Safety Auditors number 16.
There it is right there. I think driver's just getting tight once again, and that's exactly what happened. Dwight Beverly just plowed the wall coming off of turn 4. I think maybe a couple of other drivers in front of him maybe checked up a little bit and sort of altered the trajectory he took through the corner, but one of the things it's the easy mistake to make here, isn't it? Is just you get to the throttle coming off one of these corners, and you want to be greedy on it. You see drivers in front of you start checking up, and it's just a 1 foot wide mistake that Dwight made. If he had an extra foot of real estate on that right side, wouldn't have even hit that wall, and we'd be logging lap number 19 right now under green flag conditions. But he pushes a little bit. Now we got a handful of cars with damage. We're going to have to reset our field here as we get our first real kind of caution here in terms of strategy. That first one was too early to really be relevant. This one now, 20 laps in, you're likely going to see the whole field down on a pit road.
Everyone's catching up to the pace car. As that was all going on, E.J. O'Rourke was able to move into the top 3, passing Chad Coleman now in 4th spot. In the top 5, Brandon Bowie as well. Larry Pace, in fact, just noticed this now, lost a lot of time prior to the caution flag, so around that same time, had dropped from where he was at P4 rather, all the way back to P6. So everyone getting ready for 4 tires and fuel. As talked about, the fuel runs, give or take, about 40-45 laps at the most, give or take. Expect everyone to come on in as they will do so now, heading just 20 laps into the race tonight.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about a 45-lap fuel run, what's interesting here is that this caution doesn't change anything in terms of the strategy. You still have to pit twice to be able to make it to the end of the race. So everyone's going to come down just due to tires. I mean, you just look at Jacoby's lap time in terms of how much fall off we're dealing with. He's gone from mid-40s down to high 41s. So talk about the drop-off. I mean, this is a track where you're mostly flat out all the way around this place, and you're seeing lap times drop off by about 1.5 seconds to nearly 2 seconds every single lap. And those tires are really, really struggling. That's why we're seeing these people really plow the wall here, especially here, Justin. You don't have as much banking as you do at some of the other tracks to help you even when those tires start to go away. As the race off pit road starts here, and Jacoby's not going to win it.
Coming away with the victory off pit road, it's Trey Edson. Brian Boris Cook had missed his pit box. E.J. O'Rourke moves up into 2nd. Jason Jacoby loses 2 spots and drops to 3rd, with Larry Pace still losing a couple more spots in the pit cycle. Chad Coleman also up in the top 5 still. So as expected, everyone comes in. Lucky Dog back on the lead lap now is going to be Jimmy Coleman, who brought out the first caution of the race. But now, one of the most consistent drivers in Trey Edson so far, back up in front, along with someone we haven't talked much about in E.J. O'Rourke so far this season.
Been a slow start to the season for EJ. He's not really put in those performances I think a lot of people would expect. Now he's starting to really find rhythm here at Fontana. He qualified really well and is of course running P3 right now. It's going to be interesting to see. Actually, I take that back. He is out in front. So it's going to be interesting, or P2, excuse me. So it's going to be interesting to see how EJ can keep this up and keep things going. Be really nice to see him get a good run in here tonight.
It would be absolutely interesting as well. And as mentioned, there were some new drivers in this mix too that we haven't talked much about. Drivers like Joshua Williams. If we go back to the number 60 Menards car, for those that race a part of the iRacing community will recognize him. A majority of the races he's in will run in the top 5 or be a contender for race victories. Joshua Williams up to P16 after starting 28th, and one of the new members making the first starts tonight in the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Winter Series.
And if they don't recognize him due to the performance, they likely recognize him due to that neon yellow Menards Mustang.
Yeah, they definitely do, absolutely, and he's one of those competitive drivers that you expect to kind of see, and might be actually someone that could really scramble up some of the drivers that have been wanting to gain points. One thing to note in terms of the point standings for the first couple races, they've included bonus points at the halfway point for this season, from 10 all the way to 1 for the top 10 in the points. And if he gets up into the top 10, that could be helpful for him to maybe sneak his way into the top 8 for the chase if he gets a lot of good races together before that chase starts around February.
That's one of those things that obviously you want to finish as well as you possibly can, and it's one of those things where you don't want to count your chickens too much before they hatch here, because we've seen so many people this season just in the first 2 races not qualify very well, run their way through the field and get their way up to the front. And I think we're seeing that with a handful of drivers already tonight. I think Navarro's going to end up picking a couple spots up before we see the end of him, definitely for tonight for sure. But you know, there's still a lot of racing to go here before the chase. Only 3 races down. We're not even at the Christmas break yet. I think if you're at the Christmas break and if you're not yet really started seeing some consistent top 10s, that's when it's sort of panic mode when it comes to the points.
I absolutely agree in terms of the panic mode. Definitely important to start to get some consistency from this point on. As you see the 2 Kickass Beef Jerky cars on the front row for this restart, 1 to go until the restart. We'd like to thank Kickass Beef Snacks, which was founded in the 1950s by Charles Little and currently owned by Charles's son Jeremy Little, for sponsoring this series. A growing brand that we've seen continue to grow in the iRacing community and across the world, whether continuing to grow as a recognized brand sold nationwide. Once again, thank you very much to Kickass Beef Jerky for sponsoring the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Winter Series. Visit them at kickassbeefjerky.com, follow them at Twitter at kickassbeefjerk, or like them on Facebook on Kickass Beef Jerky. But with that, it's Edson that's on the inside of the number 10 car. EJ O'Rourke is on the outside of the number 41. Then you have Jason Jacoby starting alongside Chad Coleman. He will start in front of Larry Pace, and Nelson Rivera currently behind him, with Brandon Bowie on the outside line for the top few spots. They approach the restart zone. Edson holds them up. We're off and away, back on the green once again here at Auto Club.
A decent restart here for the 10, but he's not broken away from the 41 much at all. So let's see. Nope, they're going to get themselves single file. So it's going to be Trey, O'Rourke, and Coleman, your top 3. Jacoby ends up falling to P number 4 at the end of it. I think maybe a slightly, let's say, choreographed restart here by your top 3 perhaps, or maybe just really good reaction times, as Jacoby's going to try to work on that 3rd place car, Chad Coleman, going into turn 3.
You see that battle right now. Jacoby trying to dive his way back around Coleman as things are getting dicey right on behind as well. We'll get to that in a split second as Jacoby trying to run the inside line, able to carry just enough momentum. We'll get the drop behind from Bowie. Can he hold on to Coleman is going to be the question as they head into turn number 1. The 2 Kickass Beef Jerky cars pull away, but Jason Jacoby holds on to P3. Brandon Bowie moves up to P4. Well, Coleman will have to deal with DeBarro diving his way to the inside line, trying to get away for P5.
A lot of drivers we typically see at the front of these fields starting to find their way there. DeBarro's up a couple spots. Bowie's picked up a spot on the restart. Jason as well. So EJ and Trey, they're going to have their hands full, I think, here sooner rather than later, unless Trey's got a little bit of speed in that car that we haven't seen yet, because the only car we've seen really leading this race thus far has been Mr. Jason Jacoby. As the entire field will come across front straight, you see all the different lines people will take down this front straightaway. They're nearly fanning out 4 wide here in the fight for 10th.
Look who's in the mix. Donnie Leah trying to battle his way in the middle line. Nearly gets squeezed between Nick Silver and Glenn Campbell as he'll try and cut his way underneath the number 15 machine of Silver. Tries to head back to the outside line. Instead, just gets to the right rear quarter panel of Silver. As you look back at the battle of the top 5, between that battle and the top 10, Leah's going to dive his way back into single file, but everyone's trying to take advantage of mistakes. Multiple drivers having close experiences in the first couple laps as the restart, and Leah is the one leading parts of the charge, plus 11 since the restart.
Been a very good race for him. Nick Silver as well started 27th. He's up to 11th. So these guys really moving around. Donnie Leah still fighting though on that outside, stuck fighting with the 42 of David Comstock, who's down low. Comstock's going to push a little bit. I see a bit of damage on that car, and look at the run Leah gets up top. He might make it 2 between the between turn 2 and between turn 3, and indeed he does, getting around Nick Silver. Very well held, and he sees an open gap down low. He wants it.
And Donnie Leah, of course, having experience in the NASCAR Wheeled and Modified Series as well as in real life for the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series a couple years ago with his famous win at Mansfield back in the late 2000s. He's currently up in the 11th spot, trying to gain some points early on in the season and have his best run so far this season. Second overall start, as that is currently the big side-by-side battle for everyone else. They're starting to pull on away up in the top three. They have now pulled away from Brandon Bowie. That is the group of Edson, O'Rourke, and Jacoby that is currently pulling away from this group that is led by Bowie, Coleman, DeBarro, and Pace.
We've seen this pretty much all year, haven't we? The first kind of 3 or 4 cars generally able to get themselves broken away. So Jacoby's really doing. Oh, we got a car around in front straightaway at start finish. That might be a huge incident as they stop right in the middle of the front stretch, and then the secondary incident because of it.
And that is Glenn Campbell, who went around. Secondary incident involving the number 47, it appeared. Let's look at Campbell first off. Remember, he was battling with Donnie Leah. Leah at the time was on the outside and ends up actually hopping off the ground, in fact, while spinning out before the secondary incident. So we're back under caution on lap number 29.
See what happened here, because this was a car we were talking about fighting with Donnie Leah. I think just a little bit of miscommunication on where they were each going. It's one of the dangerous things on these curved straightaways. When you have a driver alongside you, you need to kind of pick a constant arc and stick with it, because that driver outside of you or inside of you, if they're referencing you, they're going to be using that exactly just as that as a reference. So if there's any point where you sort of straighten out the wheel and come up the racetrack, it's asking for trouble, and I think that may have happened a couple times, but it's hard to tell if who exactly it was may have changed lanes. Donnie was definitely being aggressive, trying to stay as close to that car as he possibly could. It's definitely a hard one to pick.
Absolutely now, and that's similar to what we've seen in real life from a few years ago, and I think it was involving Casey Kane and Danica Patrick in the Cup race. But either way, caution on lap number 30, back under the pace laps here. Edson still leads. O'Rourke is currently in second. Jacoby third. Bowie, Coleman rounding out the top 5. That secondary incident had involved the number 47 machine of Patrick Colby after having some incidental contact from behind from Jason Barham to destroy his front end. But now, this allows everyone to top off on fuel potentially and take some more tires here. Looks like everyone coming right back on in after that fairly decently okay run in terms of distance. A total of 6 laps on the tires.
And in terms of the timing of this caution, it's actually really interesting. You talked about the field number, 40 to 45 laps. Currently 90 laps from the end of this thing, and we're going to get a few more laps of caution under the belt here. So I think what we're going to end up seeing is everyone going to be coming down pit road, and this should, in theory, take at least one green flag pit stop out. In theory. Now, whether or not it ends up staying like that, of course, you know, tire strategy is, of course, a big part of the races here at Auto Club. We've already talked about the drop-off as everyone's getting ready to come out. And actually, I think we got a lot of people doing some odd calls here, because there's a number of cars up front that we did not see earlier. Timothy Johnston wins the race off of pit road. Jason Jacoby ends up well down the order. We may have some 2-tire calls here happening very, very early on in this thing.
We have a ton of them, in fact, right now. Timothy Johnston leading the 2-tire brigade in the number 30 US AA machine. That Toyota now leads the group, with Anthony DeBarro also taking 2, along with Brandon Bowie. David Comstock also taking 2 as for track position. Nick Cohen also taking 2. Shane Ewing also taking 2. The rest of the field all took 4 tires. Brian Wortman in the tribute car to Morgan Shepherd in the number 89 machine with the Pray for Jesus car is going to have to duck in after missing his stall. But now, this is going to be interesting. I mean, there wasn't as many laps on these tires, but that's still a decent amount of tire wear for a track like Auto Club.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I'm sort of unsure how I feel about this, because clearly the drivers know that in terms of fuel load, that if they can go 45 laps, that they're within the window of cutting a pit stop. So I'm not a big fan of a 2-tire call here, because if going long on every run and cutting out the pit stop is the right way to go, this is just always the wrong call, because you're going to get to the end of this this first run, and the tires are going to be absolutely dead. I mean, they're probably going to be gone within about 15 to 20 laps, and those on 4 are going to have a huge advantage. So if you're out there on 4 tires right now and you see a handful of cars in front of you that took 2, definitely not panic mode just yet. Just let them kind of sit out there and maybe burn themselves up. Got to play the long game here if you're the likes of maybe, you know, Jacoby and Wortman, those guys, or excuse me, not Wortman, but Cohen, any of those guys that had just ended up taking 4 tires.
But I don't blame a couple of the drivers like Nick Cohen. He had been in the 20s for this race. He started 31st. Some of these drivers needed to gain the track position because you got to factor in, although it's still 30 laps around away, if you get quick cautions as we look at the big gainers and losers of this with the strategy calls here, it could work out to your benefit if you get a 5-6 lap run again.
Definitely can. It can really end up working itself out, but it's at the same time, it's so early in the race. It's a hard one to call. I mean, you're talking about going 88 laps with you're talking about being 88 laps away from the finish in a 120 lap race. I feel like pulling the trigger this early generally doesn't work out unless you had a big, say, issue in your qualifying and you see yourself well down the order. I think if you're someone like Anthony DeBarro, who, you know, 11 spots down, we've seen Anthony, I think, work some strategy in the past, and we've seen him also run his way through fields a couple times this season. I think he might be okay, but a couple of these other guys, it'd be interesting to see how it ended up working out for them.
Either way, 1 to go, as we'll have to see how the strategies work out. Timothy Johnston will lead them to the green flag when we get back and away. Anthony DeBarro on the outside in the Coors Light number 27 with Brandon Bowie in row 2, David Comstock. Then E.J. O'Rourke and Trey Edson round out the top 6. Jacoby and Cohen in the top 8. And rounding out the top 10 is Chad Coleman and Shane Ewing as they work their way down the backstretch. Right now, with so many cars up at the front on 2 tires, how do you take the restart as a driver?
If you're on 4 tires, I think you take it a little passively, knowing those guys are on 2. You're not sure what's going to happen with them. They're likely to maybe get some wheel spin, and of course they might just flat out get loose. So if I'm one of these guys that's on 4, I'm definitely not shoving my splitter right underneath their rear spoiler going into turn 1 and turn 2 for the first time. Probably not even turn 3 or turn 4 for the first time. I'm going to just wait and see if one of them ends up spinning, give myself some room to react. If you're on 2 tires, try to get as best of a restart as you can get and run away from the guys with 4.
They work their way now through turns 3 and 4, what should be a very fanatic and very crazy restart here for the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Winter Series. Pace cars off the track into the pits as laying them down again. Johnston on the inside line, DeBarro on the outside. Johnston's off and away. We're back on our way. Multiple drivers checking up in around the mid-10s as we're back underway for the restart.
There's a lot of people trying to time this jump, and that's what's caused that stack up in the mid-pack. If we get an incident here, I wouldn't be surprised. There's a couple 2 and 3 wide moments up and down the field. Timothy Johnston, though, able to get away with the lead. Brandon Bowie, with a great restart, is going to slot his way into second for the moment, but DeBarro has a good head of steam up the outside. You also have the likes of Edson, Jacoby, as well as Nick Cohen, all fighting for positions. E.J. O'Rourke is in that little fight as well. So you got a bit of 2x2x2 action happening through our race leaders. They now come to the front straightaway at the end of this restart.
3 wide now coming towards the start and finish line as DeBarro runs his way on the apron. Bowie's going to give him space as he'll tuck back in behind Johnston. David Comstock now trying to join the battle as the drivers on 4 tires trying to work their way up. Jason Jacoby nearly hits the back quarter panel of Trey Edson as they now try and work their way towards the front. Again, the top 4 took 2 tires. Right now, a majority of the drivers who took 4 are closing up and quick onto the back end for the battle for 3rd spot.
Yeah, and I think this is what we expected to see. DeBarro's doing a good job out there, as well as Jason Jacoby. Nick Cohen doing his best. I think Cohen may actually be a 2-tire individual as well, because he came from deep in the field following that restart. So he's sort of an odd situation there, as he started amongst a number of the front runners who took 4 as they go through turns number 1 and 2 again, and Brandon Bowie has caught your race leader is Timothy Johnston. So that USAA car's days may be numbered out there out in front as they come down the backstretch. See people now jockeying off of turn 2, getting their bit of real estate and trying to pick up spots into 3.
Nearly getting bumper to bumper, some of the drivers right now. As you look towards David Comstock, he now has to worry about Jason Jacoby. He's the first driver on 4 tires. He gets checked up, in fact, as Trey Edson gets him a little bit loose arrow-wise as Jacoby nearly bobbles his way into the grass. Edson can't take advantage, but they will stay single file heading into turn number 1. But look at that swarm of cars just behind Nick Cohen. Currently trying to battle side by side, nearly bumper to bumpers, a lot of drivers as they all sort themselves out as the battle for the race lead tries to unfold. Brandon Bowie just cannot get the run, tries to take it on the inside of Johnston. Will he dive it in this time? Bowie dives it in late. He gets on by Johnston as Brandon Bowie takes the race lead.
Very good move there by Bowie, very decisive, making that stick down towards the inside. That's going to give DeBarro a little bit of an edge, though. Let him start reeling this fight in as well. And we've seen DeBarro be relevant in every race thus far this season. You also have Jacoby and Comstock slowly working their way forward as well. So we're starting to get the usual suspects out in front, as we have had a 3-wide moment for just a second with Leah Williams and Doug Roth. And as they come off turn 2, Donnie Leah once again is getting hyper aggressive and trying to pick spots up in the Abilene car.
And also getting hyper-aggressive, David Comstock blocking Jason Jacoby up the track. Down the backstretch, Comstock will try and pinch Jacoby underneath. He gets punted up the racetrack. He'll lose a couple spots as Edson and Cohen will get the momentum and drive on by. But very tight quarters racing heading into the entry at turn number 3. Loses Comstock multiple positions in one move.
Great racing there happening on this restart. It's been absolutely fantastic, hasn't it? We're starting to see things get themselves somewhat single filed out here as the field comes off of turn 2. I think the bulk of the 4-tire cars that were greatly quicker than those on 2 have already gotten their way sorted and figured out. So they head off in towards turn 3. The only thing a double file fight I see, Scott Simley and Matthew Wallenbach, as they're going to go side by side. Wallenbach as they scream through 3 and 4. That number 12 Phillips 66 car going to push up a little bit. Think maybe had to lift off the throttle, and that's going to give Matthew the slide advantage up top as they now head in towards turn 1 and 2 once again.
The action picking up across the field as you look at the battle for 21st up on your screen. Matthew Wallenbach, again the number 12, driving the Route 66 Ford, getting a bit of momentum on the run, able to get the pass he wants to get by that number 62 machine. 62 falls back into line as they move their way on forward now, trying to defend back as we look back towards the front, though, because things are getting a bit interesting. You see how things are shaping up. That number 15 of Nick Silver cuts his way in front of the nose this time, able to hold on to the spot he needs to in front of Ewing, but it's getting near bumper to bumper for the positions up for 1, 2, 3, and 4 spots. Jacoby dive bombs it in. He's up to the 3rd spot up on the road. He slides his way right in front of Anthony DeBarro, and he could possibly go on the attack of Johnston as DeBarro pushes him off the track slightly on the exit.
Things getting dicey here up amongst our race leaders. Jacoby P3 as that 27 car will poke the nose back again down low. 3 wide again behind. I think that might be Donnie Lee. No, it's Shane Ewing, E.J. O'Rourke involved as well as Nick Silver. So top 7, top 8, top 10 all getting dicey here as DeBarro is trying to hold on to that 3rd spot, and he will for now.
Very aggressive racing. Still 80 laps to go. Underneath that mark, 79 to be exact, as Jacoby now tries to take the outside line. He'll try and diamond off the corner as he can't get the job quite done yet on DeBarro as everyone lines back on up, but that battling has allowed Trey Edson and Nick Cohen to both come into play once again, with David Comstock wanting to play once again as Jacoby tries to set it in, gets into the back bumper of DeBarro. DeBarro still holds on, but that was a little bit dicey once again, giving a little bit of a love tap to DeBarro, no damage.
Yeah, I think that was a bit of a misjudgment there by Jason rather than intentional. It's definitely too early to be playing those sorts of games, especially at the head of the field. So DeBarro hold on to 3rd for now as Bowie's going to be, liking a little bit of space he's going to be getting because of that. But DeBarro, he's doing such a good job on these old tires, hasn't he? We've seen these two fight it out a couple of times already this season. We're only on the 3rd race. We saw a great battle at Vegas, and I think we saw DeBarro make a 2-tire call there as well to be able to keep the car pinned out in front. So now with a slightly cooler track, maybe with a slightly... Oh, big caution.
Randy Yoakum has flipped down the backstretch in the Patriot Fire car, as we'll see the reason why on the replay, as Yoakum gets bumped from behind, goes head first into the safer barrier on the inside to cause the caution flag and help everyone that took the 2 tires.
Big incident there from the 8. He actually slammed that wall at nearly 170 miles an hour, didn't slow down at all. Just basically flipped and pretty much went right back into the basically into the traffic. Actually reminds me of Greg Moore's crash that he had here so many years ago in terms of the speed he carried down to the inside. Absolutely scary incident. Luckily we were racing on some pixels and not real life, because that would have been a real big one.
Yeah, real big incident there. We look at this as you see the contact from behind. That's Michael Keaton, who sends the number 8 off into the wall, nearly comes into traffic. No one else hits him, so the caution flag comes out. Multiple drivers lucky they don't have secondary incidents there caused from that. But you know who the big gainers are? Everyone who took 2 tires, because basically everyone who took 2 was able to hold on to majority of the positions they had. They're all going to come in and have a chance to take 4 tires now and keep all the track position they gained, including the top 3 that all were on that strategy.
Yeah, it's really worked out for those guys. If you took 2 tires and were able to stay up there, it's good. However, a lot of these guys that were out front are now going to see that after a short run, 2 tires isn't so bad. I think this run's long enough that you're going to see everyone likely take 4, sort of, I think, past that threshold where 2 would be worth. Oh, Brandon Bowie misses pit box, and he's still not in it, so he's going to be going at least mid-pack at the best, unless he takes 2.
An absolute mistake, and it would be even more risky possibly to take 2 to try and recover that as everyone comes out. Johnston leads them out. DeBarlo just able to beat Jacoby out of the pits, as you see on your time and scoring. Nick Cohen plus 16 in total. That includes, of course, drivers going to their stalls, but able to stay in the top 5. David Comstock, Trey Edson, Chad Coleman, Nick Silver rounding out the positions you see up on your screen. But as you mentioned, Bowie having some bad luck, losing a lot of spots. He's going to slot in behind where Larry Pace is on the racetrack, all the way back in 18th position because he missed the pit box.
Yeah, I mean that's potentially a race killer, especially at this point. I mean, you talk about those early phases of the race where when everyone is still kind of spread out, especially at the start, there's so many, kind of people that are, let's say maybe didn't qualify well and are maybe in the mid-pack that you can fight your way forward. Now all the fast cars have worked their way up front, so just every car you pass is just going to get harder and harder to get by. So for Brandon Bowie, big mistake to make at this phase of the race. Luckily for him, still about 75 laps of running to essentially be able to make something of it. So the better part of the race still to go.
Still 15 laps away from the halfway point as they all tap their way behind the pace car, still slowly but surely catching up to the said pace car before we get back underway here. Again, Johnston first, DeBarlo second, Jacoby third, Cohen, Comstock now scored in 5th spot, Edson, Coleman, along with Rivera, Silver. Cook is also up there with E.J. O'Rourke as well inside that same mixture. But now, at this point, who are you keeping your eye on at this point as we slowly approach our way towards the midway point of this race to wake up for the second half potentially?
That's really a hard one to say. I think Brandon Bowie is going to be fun to watch after that mistake. E.J. O'Rourke may be someone to watch. You saw him up near the front. He's dropped back to 12th. There's a time that he needs to kind of come alive and make something happen of it. It's now. David Comstock's come through the field. Nick Cohen has come through the field. A lot of the drivers that if they were going to make an appearance tonight, they've already woken up, because there's a lot of people that have made up a lot of spots. I mean, look, top 2 started outside of the top 10, and we're not even halfway through this race.
A lot can change, of course, and as you mentioned, a lot of drivers starting outside the top 10, now up towards the front. Remember, 27 total drivers have recorded times during qualifying out of the 40 entrants. Currently, 1 do not start due to technical issues. Corey Chester, 3 DNFs so far. Randy Yoakum, Dwight Beverly, Tommy Ryan. As we head towards the front stretch once again for this one here on RaceSpotTV. As Johnston gets ready to lead them down on the inside line, it's now going to be the question, can he compete as well as he did on 4 tires with DeBarlo up front with him that could potentially battle along with them, as Johnston appears to have chosen the outside line possibly for this restart, or is still deciding, in fact, as DeBarro waits along the inside line.
I think at this point he's pretty much committed to that outer groove, so you likely won't see them swap spots again. So for Timothy Johnston, it's going to be interesting to see. We've seen this, I think, once or twice this far this season. It hasn't really caused concern. Of course, the big point, the big point to just being a leader is just being able to control the restart. So to a certain extent, being high or low doesn't matter as long as you're able to get clear of that car that's down to your inside. So Johnston just needs to make, if DeBarro is able to time this restart, Johnston might be in trouble here and might be able to, might find himself losing the lead. But as long as he gets the typical restart we normally see, I think he should be fine. But I think if I'm the 27 car now, I'm being much more aggressive and probably I've been honing my drag racing skills trying to time this restart.
After the last restart where some drivers took 2 tires, there was a warning from race control, a verbal warning to not jump the restart this time around, or else drivers would be issued black flags as they approach lap 48 for this restart. Again, on the outside is the control car, Timothy Johnston. On the inside, Anthony DeBarro, as they lead their way towards the front stretch. Final warnings being given once again as the pace car comes off the racetrack. Johnston already half a car length in front of the bumper of DeBarro, leads him to the green flag. Later restart this time as we're back on our way. DeBarro, though, times it up well as Nick Cohen, who gets himself a decent run. Able to still stay single file, though, heading into turn number 1 as dive bomb on the inside. Trey Edson already battling Jason Jacoby for the top 4.
Not a big surprise there. Edson and Jacoby have been aggressive with each other all season. They're nearly 3 wide behind as well, as one driver just about gets squeezed up towards that blue wall. Edson's going to have the inside here towards turn 3, so Jacoby, I don't think he'll be able to fight it just yet, and indeed, he won't be able to. Big dive coming from behind as well. David Comstock saw him closing a lot of ground onto the rear end of that 10 car going into turn 3, and he's slightly up the inside of Jacoby, but wasn't able to maintain the pace coming off the corner. Johnston and DeBarro, though, they're still going to be nose to tail. They scream in towards 1 and 2.
Jacoby able to tuck back into 5th, now has to deal with Comstock going off the inside. Coleman, though, is now playing defense as you look at the 2x2 right behind him. Tries to cut up tight, though, is Comstock. They're going to go 3 wide down the backstretch. Coleman on the inside, in the middle line, rather. Silver on the inside, in the middle with Rivera on the outside line. 3 wide, 2x2 into turn number 3 as Coleman has to check up. O'Rourke also going to be held up as Joshua Williams will try and follow the revolving door to the inside line.
So many fights happening here on this restart at the midway point. You see that 3 wide still going in towards turn 1. Nick Silver down low, the 20 car Chad Coleman in the middle, and David Comstock's going to be the loser. He's going to lose at least 2 spots, and he's not done fighting just yet. He might find himself on the losing end of another 3 wide battle. No, he's able to solidify his way 2x2 in the whole field. It's like they're stacked up for a restart, but they're doing it at 187 miles an hour.
And they're still side by side right now, and you know what? This helps out everyone else that's single file up in front of them. Each driver going side by side drafting one another, still trying to fight for position. No one able to get breathing room. They're back to 3 wide just about as 2 drivers are trying to get towards the outside lines of Leah. Well, Silver has to deal with the inside line of Joshua Williams. He'll send it back to the inside. Williams has to check up. He pushes Silver up the racetrack as they're side by side drafting each other once again towards the backstretch.
Still so much work going on by everybody trying to make these things happen. The leaders, meanwhile, have a nice, comfortable cruise down the California highway out in front as that bright yellow Menards car. We talked about how well-known that driver is. He's making himself known with that bright yellow machine out in front right now, picking up his way in towards what I believe will be the 7th spot, and indeed it's going to be. So a great run for Joshua Williams, 28th up to P7, and we're still 8 laps from halfway.
Chad Coleman as well has been able to break away from the side-by-side battling, so he'll try and cruise his way forward in P number 6. Williams still trying to hold on to the inside. inside line. Nick Silver still holding on aggressively to the outside line as Rivera really loses momentum. He's forced 3 wide right on behind them. So Nelson Rivera now driving on back. We're also moving up Shane Ewing along with Donnie Leah as they try and punch their way back into the top 10 for this race. Everyone moving their way forward, slowly approaching that halfway point, just under 10 laps away from bonus points.
It's going to be interesting to see how much these front runners really are going to be aggressive with it. These top 5 that have lined themselves up, Johnston, Navarro, Cohen, Edson, Jacoby. I don't think there's any need to be that aggressive with the bonus points. Yeah, you want to get them, but I don't think it's enough to really worry about. So if I were any of those guys, they would not be in the back of my mind. I would be more worried about keeping this thing green and not getting into the hornet's nest of fighting that's happening in the mid-pack with the likes of Nelson Rivera, Brandon Bowie, Donnie Leah, and Brandon Boris Cook, who just shoved Judge Judy right into the rear spoiler on the Havoline Mustang, and they're going to go 3 wide down the front stretch. What a save by Donnie Leah.
You're looking at a 3-wide battle. Larry Pace on the inside line, still trying to hold on in the Sim500 Kickass beef jerky machine, as Leah's going to back out of that battle, allow Judge Judy with Brian Boris Cook behind the wheel to try and get himself sorted, as Leah tries to fall back in on the high side. So they'll stay 2 by 2 by 2, battling for right now for as high as key number 15 on the racetrack, allowing the rest of the top 12, top 13 rather, to pull on away. Still holding on, though, to the inside is Pace, pushing up Cook up the racetrack. And in fact, Cook hits the wall. Leah touches the door as Cook gets contact. Drivers are off in the grass. 3 different drivers spinning. Chris Gabot, Tyler Overstreet, Steve Shahan, as the green flag is still out, as every car that was involved spun in the grass. A big incident. That's no caution, as you'll see on the Race Spot replay.
I don't think that was Donnie Leah that actually made contact there with Boris. I don't think anyone actually made contact. Yeah. Boris just got tight and everyone had to check up behind. Big incident. It's one of these situations where when drivers spin off the racing surface, the caution flag's not going to come out. So we stay green despite the bit of pandemonium. And if you're any of those drivers that just took a trip through the grass, that's going to be pretty much night done. So you're going to have big damage and not going to get the reset that you need to come down and get repaired. So I see Steve Sheehan with big damage, Tyler Overstreet's out there with big damage, Chris Cabot, Patrick Colby perhaps as well. So a lot of hurt cars following that incident. They're likely going to be calling it night done.
Overstreet ducking into the pits. Sheehan also ducking into the pits as action continues up at the front as this has been going on. Nick Cohen still holding on to P3, trying to chase after Timothy Johnson and Anthony DeBarro in the top 2, as Jason Jacoby is now pulling away from Trey Edson, who let him on by just a couple laps ago as everything was sorting themselves out. So now the top 4 stay single file. Everyone's still trying to get back into the rhythm here, just a couple laps away from the bonus points for the halfway mark here for the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Winter Series, as Jacoby, I think at this point he's hungry to try and maybe get towards maybe leading some laps again at this point.
I think you're right. He's probably frustrated because there's been so many of these races like this that have happened for Jason where he'll lead early and then right around midway he's just sort of not really in it for the win anymore. Of course, we had the incident in Vegas where despite a good finish, you know that he was likely frustrated, felt that he left a lot on the table. So as they come down towards start finish straight and nearing that halfway point, he's been very aggressive and he's going to pick the aggression up once again as Cohen might be in for a loss of that 3rd spot, and indeed that seems to be the case. But did Jason drive in too hard into the entry in turn 1? Seems to be the situation. The 21 carries so much speed up top,
and Jacoby again having to tuck back in a line. And at this point, with the way the race is starting to trend, these drivers have been on the racetrack under green since lap 48. So as much as it hasn't felt like a 10-lap run, at this point, this is the point of the run where the tires start to build up. You get tight on the exit of turn 4, and if you want to pass, you need to basically focus up and prepare for multiple laps as the caution flag comes out to scratch everything up in the window. Caution flag on the front stretch. Jimmy Coleman, Matthew Wilsonbach involved in this one as we look at Wilsonbach, who ends up hitting the wall, as mentioned, and gets bumped from behind.
Yep, just the same mistake that we've been seeing all night. Really, the only source of any of the cautions is coming off of turn 4, drivers just keeping their foot in it and Fortunately, Mr. Jonathan Lockhart just really had nowhere to go. He got the corner absolutely right and was not going to hit that wall, but as much as Waldenbach slowed down after he got into the wall, just no time to react in that bright orange Ford Mustang. Jonathan Lockhart, and he basically just drove right into the rear of that car at full speed. That was about 20 to 30 miles an hour off pace. So fortunate incident there, and we're going to get that field reset that we didn't get after that first incident.
So caution flag is out after a 10-11 lap run after the big caution down the front stretch in the grass. Timothy Johnston still holding on as this is right where the bonus points are beginning at the end of this lap. Pretty curious if everyone decides to stay out in the top 10 and come out the next lap or end up waiting for the extra lap. We'll have to see for sure as everyone tries to catch on up. But that was another very good run. But one of the drivers that really lost time, E.J. O'Rourke, who fell all the way back to 9th spot towards the end of that run as the battling was shuffling on, as everyone was going side by side, side drafting, trying to keep up and try and maybe get some runs to single file to keep up with this man, the number 30 of Timothy Johnston.
That's going to be interesting to see what happens here with EJ, because he was sort of my pick to maybe wake up during that run, and he definitely did not. So as everyone comes down pit road, are we seeing some strategy calls? Nick Cohen's going to stay out, and that's...
I think that's for points. I think that's the points because he's been aiming for bonus points. We've seen this a little bit, I think, in Atlanta. He's going to stay out, and if I understand the proper rule for this, he may or may not just got the 10 bonus points here. Going to have to make sure with time in the scoring at the end of today's event. But everyone else is ducking into the pits. Just 2 drivers staying out, not risking the points. Shane Ewing also staying out. Everyone else going in for possibly more tires, 4 tires, and fuel halfway through this race.
It's a very cocky call, I think, by Cohen, because it's one of those situations where giving up a lot of track position, thinking you can get your way back forward throughout the rest of this race. And I know he started 31st, and he was doing a good job up there out in front. He definitely has a lot of speed, so I don't think he will be the most surprising thing if he finds his way back up front. No, I definitely think it won't, but now he's going to find himself peeling back down towards pit road and starting at the tail end of everything at the last half of this thing. That's a big gamble here from Cohen for what is essentially just 10 points. It's going to be interesting to see. He could throw the entire result of a race away just for about 10 bonus points, which, while bonus points are important, finishing well is arguably more so.
I agree with you on this one. To put in a context, 13 bonus points in the first 2 races for Nick Cohen, as we'll have to see if he does duck it on in. A total, once again, of 2 drivers had came in. Brian Wortman has stayed out every single first run in the pits. As expected, they come in on the second run into the pits. Everyone else hitting on the first cycle, not sacrificing track position. So that's going to move Johnston up to the lead, DeBarrel second, and Jacoby in the 3rd spot. Trey Edson still in the 4th spot. Chad Coleman also up at the front. One thing is to keep in mind here in this, the races are expected in these situations to last on an average this season 1 hour and 30 minutes. That's a total of 90 minutes, an hour and a half. However, already at the halfway point, we are just past an hour into the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Winter Series. What Race Control has just informed drivers is there is a situation where at the 2-hour mark of the overall length of the race, that will be basically around where the race will end. So that could be interesting if that becomes the case. I don't know if we will see that become the case, but that is now an interesting wrinkle to this one if the cautions build on up here at Auto Club.
Well, it's been an hour and 1 minute, and in just doing the math here, we had 1 caution at the start, a second caution, 3, 4. I believe this is the 5th or 6th caution of the night here, if I'm keeping track of it correctly. So I think as long as we end up with 5 or less, be okay. And I've seen this happen before. I've seen this in IndyCar series. I've seen this in I believe it's the classic IndyCar series has the same rule in effect that there's a time window as well as a maximum laps. And of course they race to the laps unless the time window gets in. And I've seen it a couple times. We get to halfway and we're pushing that sort of number in terms of the time and the lap count, and suddenly the second half of the race is really clean, and we beat that number out by about 20 minutes. And it's very likely that the same could happen here. If they just let loose a 40-50 lap run all of a sudden, we could end up seeing that time delay essentially not even being a factor. But we do have just under, you know, it's a 2-hour segment for 120 laps. We have something in the realm of about 58 minutes to be able to squeeze in those last 60 laps. So it's going to be tight here for these guys if they keep the cautions flowing.
Very tight indeed, as Tyler Overstreet just took the wave around Lucky Dog situation. I believe it was Chris Gibeau who was involved in that incident in the grass, so he moves back to the lead lap. Steve Shahan, along with Tyler Overstreet, still a lap down. 3 DNFs still in the field. Everyone else is still running, although there's a lot of drivers with severe damage, 32nd, 31st range. But right now we head towards the backstretch. Timothy Johnston will lead them on the inside line for the restart this time after choosing the outside last time. Anthony Nabarro will start outside of him with Jason Jacoby alongside, guess who? It's going to be the number 60 of Joshua Williams in his best starting position for a restart yet in this one, with Edson, Coleman, O'Rourke, Silver, and Bowie along with Comstock rounding out the top 10 as they work their way through turns 3 and 4 after the caution flag. A grand total today, once again, of 5 cautions on the race tonight here on Race Spot as we watch them work their way towards turn 4. The USAA Toyota will lead them down towards the restart zone once again, starting alongside DeBarro in the Coors Light Toyota. Pace car is off the racetrack. They wait. The virtual fans stand. We're back on our way. The inside line gets checked up. We're back on our way as DeBarro times it up very well on the outside lines. We're back on our green.
But DeBarro's wishing he had that start a couple of restarts ago when Johnston picked the outside, didn't he? Because he would have been fighting for that race lead as Jacoby's going to comfortably hold on to that third spot. Josh Williams will fall back into fourth and is actually going to work the contenders. So that bright yellow Mustang has a bit of momentum coming down the back straightaway. That 60 car trying to get up into that podium position. Will he make it stick down in towards turn 3? That's going to be the key, and Jacoby's not going to be overly aggressive outside. That Menards car just about clear, gets a little bit tight. Jacoby checks up because of it, and that's going to be Josh Williams picking the spot up, and Jacoby's going to lose a couple spots as well.
Trey Edson on the inside now after that close call. That's also going to open up the door for Chad Coleman, who's been having a heck of a week in the Sim500 series of races. As he goes to the inside, Williams now going to lose the spot to Edson as he slides back up to the outside line just about. No, he's going to give the space to Joshua Williams, who gets to the corner panel. They'll go back side by side. They'll fan out just behind him as Williams tries to defend on back with Jason Jacoby, trying to provide the pressure behind as well. The number 60 trying to run the more middle line to try and get the run back on Edson.
Drivers got word of that time limit, and that's going to, I think, really kick everything into gear. You see Josh Williams pushing Trey Edson down the front straightaway, and as they go in towards turn 1, he's just going to lift off that rear bumper. So that number 10 Kickass beef jerky car just got a little bit extra boost going in towards turn 1 there, as Johnston and Nabarro have been able to stretch the gap over Trey Edson in third. Nabarro's not being overly aggressive on that USAA machine either. He's just letting him sit out there with that race lead, as the 88's going to make a move. That's going to be on Chad Coleman for 6th.
And Chad Coleman will drop one more spot. Brandon Bowie will slide up one more spot up to the 6th spot as mentioned. So able to defend on back, but Coleman decides not to take the run quite yet. There's still a ways to go, approaching 50 laps to go on lap 68 of 67, pardon me, of 120 as they work their way back up towards the front though. DeBarro and Johnston separated by just under 0.2 of a second, trying to deal themselves together right now. Last time by, they were very close lap times. Faster was Johnson last time by, as currently in the draft is DeBarro, matching line to line as you look at the back door of Johnston.
Trey Edson brought in a 10th and a half last lap as well, so look for him. If he's able to put in another lap like that, he's going to be in this fight for the race lead. Let's take a peek at the lap times as they cycle through. Johnson does a 7.28, a 7.0 for DeBarro, and Edson does a 6.15, nearly a 10th quicker. So that 10 machine has a little bit of pace at this phase of the run over the rest of your race leaders.
And for Edson, you gotta wonder, when is he gonna make the move? Still a ways to work with, of course, but still in the back bumper and back draft, still keeping up on the back stretch with the rear end of the barrel as they go back into turn number 3 as the top 3 tries to pull back. Edson gonna roll back the corner entry this time. And this time it actually loses him a little bit of time, allowing Williams to potentially catch his draft now behind him as you look at them go back to the front stretch. The top 5 has now pulled away from the rest of the field as you see them. Johnston, DeBarro, Edson, Williams, Jacoby, your top 5.
Top 5 really starting to string themselves out single file now. Johnston still doing his best to keep away from DeBarro. The entire field, matter of fact, stringing themselves out single file. Michael Keaton, the only driver really side by side whatsoever and offline. So drivers doing their best to really clean this race up a little bit. I think they want this to end. The drivers definitely want this to end under laps rather than the time limit. And I think everyone would love to see that as well as they head down the front stretch. So Timothy Johnston still doing his best leading. The aggression is really toned off. Now the question has to be, here, Justin, you're starting near that window of when do you come down pit road trying to hit that 120 lap marker? Do you call it early at lap 80, or do you make it a little bit late at lap 90, lap 100 when you eventually hit the lane?
That's going to be a huge question. If you split up the middle in this run, they started on the restarter, lap 64, currently on lap 70, approaching the 50 laps to go. It could become a situation where you might, right now, no one can make it within, they're within maybe 15 laps, 10 laps at the very most of the finish in terms of fuel. So there is that possible gamble. Remember, last week at Atlanta, Jason Jacoby stayed all the way out to nearly to a near empty tank of fuel before getting the caution flag needed down the backstretch. That could be a possibility with the way this race has been trending here tonight here at Auto Club. Jacoby currently in the 5th spot as Edson looks like he's finally getting ready to maybe make the move on DeBarro, getting within a quarter of a car length to the back end of DeBarro, just not making the move quite yet, still waiting for the perfect time to get the run.
He hasn't really been close enough. None of these guys out in front have really been close enough to make a move. We have seen Jason Jacoby lose a little bit of time off the back of these top 4, so starting to spread out just a little bit of these guys going towards turn 1 once again. So we're now working now inside of the final 50 laps, lap 72 of 120. The aggression maybe needs to start getting picked back up just a little bit as Josh Williams tags the apron through 1 and 2. That's going to see him lose some time and fortunately not find the wall. The mistakes starting to come out from some of these guys, and that's going to stack Williams back up into Jacoby.
Yeah, just that one little couple inches gets him loose, loses him towards the back end of Edson that he caught up after a couple laps of work. Now going to have to do it all over again. Again, when it comes to these NASCAR Xfinity cars or any type of NASCAR stock cars, you've got to remember it's about a game of inches, where if you end up taking a line just a couple inches offline like that, it could be the difference between winning the race or, in the case of Williams, losing a ton of time just like that at the snap of a finger.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, one slight mistake can cost you so much time. Williams has done a good job, though, recovering and reeling that gap back in to Edson, especially now with Johnson and DeBarro. They're slightly close, but just as I say that, Edson's going to reel in DeBarro. DeBarro thinking of pitting here, seems a little bit off pace. No, Johnston just plows turn 4 way too fast, and there goes your race leader, going to go well down the order, and that's basically going to be a race-ending incident. He'll finish this thing, but he will not be competitive.
And Timothy Johnston tried to gas it up earlier on in the apex, as you see on the replay. Instead of getting the exit he thought, he launched himself directly into the safer barrier, losing multiple spots all the way to 6th spot on the racetrack with the entire right side of the car smashed on up. A tank slapper of an incident has opened up this race once again. DeBarro has taken advantage to take the race lead. Williams able to take advantage meanwhile to move up to 2nd spot as that all unfolded.
Such a weird incident to see happen too from your race leader. Typically you see that happen with the driver 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th in line due to the dirty air. Normally if you're in clean air, it's like you're out there hot lapping. So really an unfortunate incident there for Timothy. He's going to be really kicking himself, and Jacoby's making moves. He gets himself up to 3rd, up the inside of Edson. Now latched back to the rear bumper of that bright yellow Mustang of Josh Williams.
And now they're really getting dicey here after seeing that. DeBarro currently in the lead now for this race. Currently, DeBarro trying to come away with a victory after leading 18 laps at Atlanta last week. 2 top 10s and a top 5 on the season so far. Williams in his first race of the season trying to put on an impact and try and start off the point season well. Trying to battle out Jacoby, also looking for the race victory as they continue to stay single file. And while as that has gone on, Brandon Bowie is now closing on in the number 88 machine.
These guys, you know, everything's starting to kind of ended up fanning out here. Zetson and Bowie might be a fight that we have to watch here near the end. I think I see cars fanning out 3 wide, somewhere about 10th. They're even thinking about 4 wide for a moment as they go down the back straightaway. There's E.J. O'Rourke, Timothy Johnston's in that fight, Bobby Terrell, and Larry Pace. So good to see Johnston has sort of found a little bit of speed after smacking the wall, but I think this is going to be similar to what happened in Las Vegas when we saw Jacoby smack the wall coming off turn 2. Just had a car peel off on a pit lane. Yep. Who was that? I'm trying to see.
It was Brandon Bowie, I believe, Randy. So the pit window, it looks like, is open, going for the undercut, a big-time undercut, in fact, on lap 76 into 77, as he is the first driver to duck into the pit lane. Everyone else staying the way they are at this point. A big-time gamble here as he'll drop all the way back to 34th, of course, as he goes to the pit cycle. But the battle for the lead still shapes its way up as DeBarro now has to defend both Williams and Jacoby as they close right on back up to the back bumper of DeBarro once again.
Yeah, DeBarro is doing his best to keep that bright yellow. I mean, he probably looks in the rearview mirror and it's like just looking into the sun with that Mustang, but that 60 car is going to take a peek at the inside. DeBarro maybe making a bit of a strategy call, thinking of letting him by. I take that back. He's pinching him to the inside, being really aggressive. I thought he was giving him the inside to let him by, the way he sort of curved into turn 1 and let him get the run up the inside, but definitely doesn't seem to be the plans for DeBarro for anything of that nature just yet, especially with the pit sequence. Now, what are the rest of these guys amongst the top 5? When do they come down pit road? Bowie pretty much made the call, I think, at the earliest possible point with about 45 laps to go.
And that's a big-time gamble, I think, here, too, with 45 laps to go. That's right at the edge of the fuel window, first off. And second, the tire wear could become a factor. But for guys like Joshua Williams, he's just focused on giving some love taps into the corner on Anthony DeBarro, right up to the back bumper of DeBarro this time. As you look at the back bumper, watching on as Williams continues to match line for line to the back of DeBarro. They're not focused on the pit stop window quite yet. If they want to split up the middle, it'll be around lap 90 for a lot of these drivers.
Yeah, and things are getting just ever so tight here still out front. Joshua Williams has been so aggressive in this race tonight, and he's been so impressive as well. He gets the run up top. See a little bit of swerving by both of them going down the front straightaway. That's dangerous for both. Going down that curve straightaway, we've seen a couple of incidents like that already, so I wouldn't be surprised if they got a bit of a wag of the finger from race control for that, because that's a little bit silly. But as they come off of turn 2, let's see what exactly happens here. The 60 is going to have the momentum up top, but DeBarro has the short run down low, and Jacoby's just sitting there trying to think how he can maybe take advantage of all of this.
So Williams trying to defend on the high side now, has the preferred line for at least the backstretch portion of the track. Brandon Bowie, you see there, all the way down to the apron, in fact. Remember, he's in, had just pit. Could get himself back on the lead lap once he passes by these guys. So now you have to deal with the driver on fresh tires now, 16 lap fresh tires. That is starting to close on into the back bumper of these drivers. Williams still stays on the high side. DeBarro still defends on the low side as Brandon Bowie will try and break up the party. Goes underneath Jacoby. This could be possibly 3 wide now, nearly, as Bowie looks like he's going to wait and let them duke it out themselves. Keep it 2 wide for the battle for the race lead.
That's the worst thing Bowie could do, though, is wait here, because of his strategy call coming in early. He needs to try to push his advantage right here, right now, and he times it to perfection as actually Williams is going to find the wall in that bright yellow Mustang after the 3 wide moment. So it's going to be DeBarro who ends up going back to the race lead, and Josh Williams, that mistake, he didn't get the wall as hard as we've seen a couple of drivers get into it, but that was still a pretty good smack to the outside. Will he still have pace? I will say, watching Brandon Bowie run the inside apron here in Fontana has given me some memories from watching Davey Hamilton Jr. doing it about 50 miles down the road at Irwindale in a wing sprint car in the King of the Wing series.
And right now the action intensifying because Jacoby sees his opportunity, dives to the inside. He's to the left for a quarter panel. DeBarro has to back out once again. Williams will try for the crossover. They'll go side by side once again for the second spot as Williams wants the spot right on back. He's not lost any speed despite the very slight damage on the right front fender as he'll defend, go to the inside line, sending it a little bit later. Williams back up to second. Jacoby stays back in third. Trey Edson has rejoined the battle as Williams is tight once again. Jacoby goes back to the inside. He'll retake second once again, and Edson opens up the door as well. He'll get his way up towards the third spot now.
An amazing fight from these guys. Jacoby and DeBarro, we've seen them duke it out like we've been talking about all night. They've become quite a rivalry. Trey Edson in this fight as well as Josh Williams. So it seems that contact hasn't hurt Josh as much as it's hurt others. There is a bit of a sweet spot sometimes that you can sort of smack the wall and be okay, and Josh Williams might have just gotten away with that one to a certain extent. He's definitely dropped a couple of positions, of course, but not been a total disaster the way it's been for, say, so, I don't know, Timothy Johnston.
Yeah, Timothy Johnston had a huge hit. Depending on the strength of the hit and where you hit the car, you could possibly actually have axle damage and cause a possible loose wheel in some situations. Williams looks like it's possible, just body damage, very little aerial damage as he stays back and forth. You stay on board with him right now, trying to get back towards that way. Drivers are starting to get very tight, though, as Jacoby this time is the one who nearly taps the wall this time. Edson goes back to the inside. Williams, he'll just follow his way back behind Jacoby and pick up his draft as they go back to single file. Jacoby, though, maybe trying to hope for that run again. Still side by side, in fact, not electing to dive back into line to hood up Williams. He's looking to stay on that high line to carry the momentum. Everyone now holding each other up as DeBarro's now taking off and away because of all this battling.
Anthony's loving this. He's gotten himself in a free 10 car lengths now because Jacoby and Edson just don't want to let up on one another. Jacoby wants second, Trey wants second. One of them needs to essentially just sort of sit single file and just stay there. Yeah, sit in the third spot. It's okay. The pit window is pretty much right here, right now anyways. Going to likely be coming down pit road soon, regardless of if it stays green or if you get a caution. So it's not like that one little spot matters, but that extra couple, few tenths of a second that you handed to Anthony DeBarro, that could be very relevant when it all boils down to the end of things.
Keep in mind, an air driver towards the 20s just pit. Sean Dow was just pit for his final stop, potentially, of the race. So the window is open for some of the drivers near the back. No one up towards the front other than Brandon Bowie has ducked their way into the pits quite yet. They stay single file this time by on the exit of turn 4. But Edson again gets the run. Jacoby has nowhere to defend quite yet. He's going to just hold on to the high side this time by once again heading into turn number 1. As remember, that has been the preferred line for the backstretch so far. Jacoby continues to hold on to that line. Edson, though, cuts him off. Jacoby can't quite get there, so Jason Jacoby falls back to third.
Let's see how they end up treating each other now that that fight somewhat figured itself out. Jacoby thinking about maybe making a move? No, but Chad Coleman is making a move on Joshua Williams. Move Coleman up into that 4th spot. So these drivers still, as we near that pit window, are still very, very much right on top of one another. But look at the lead that DeBarro's been handed. Those two were duking it out. Over 0.6 of a second is what that 27 car was able to stretch out.
Currently, to be exact, 0.65 in fact to the apex of turns 1 and 2. As now Coleman, who has been red hot this past week, he gets tight, hits the wall. David Comstock hits the back end of him. So Comstock with some major front end damage. And Coleman, who had won 2 straight Sim500 organized races, allows Larry Pace to go on by with both of them significant damage.
That's a heartbreaker right there, being this deep in the race, coming up towards 30 laps to go. No way to recover from any sort of incident like that unless he maybe gets a caution right now and is able to get all the damage repaired. But if more than 4 or 5 laps tick off, pretty much no time for any of that to get fixed.
Yeah, he's going to have to hope for a caution maybe right now, as that hurts those drivers. They're currently running at 6 and 7. Looking back at the battle for second, Jacoby still can't quite get the run quite yet he wants on Trey Edson after defending so long on that middle line to try and get the run on the corner exit. It looks like he just can't quite get to where he needs to this time now that he's forced to now hope that he gets the draft this time. He gets tight once again and has to back out of the gas, nearly taps the wall as Williams ducks into the pits.
Our second race leader now kind of making that choice. The first, of course, being Brandon Bowie. Now we got some interesting strategy calls to play out. 30 laps to the end of the race. I think this is what you're going to see the bulk of the field end up coming down pit road. This seems to me like it'd be the correct time. Not too early, but not too late. But we still have this huge gaggle of cars from fifth on back. Look at this. They're just all stacked nose to tail, side by side, and they're fanning out nearly 3 wide down the back straightaway. Is Nick Silver going to make it move? No, he's not. He's going to leave it in line, but it's going to be E.J. O'Rourke, who's sitting there probably sweating bullets down the back straightaway, trying to figure out if he was going to be the inside car or the middle car going into turn 3 as more peel off coming down the pit road.
Jacoby, Comstock, Edson, DeBarro, all coming in. Everybody coming in, a lot of the drivers. You've seen some of the drivers in the mid-pack coming in. Car spinning in the pit entry. Bobby Wetzel, we stay green, nearly hits the inside wall and the left side yellow cone as everyone goes into their pit stalls. Now this is where the strategy game starts. Larry Pace has cycled to the lead. This is what happened, though, to Bobby Wetzel.
Just probably locking it up, coming down on towards pit road, and just a little half spin. Would have lost himself some time, but all in all, not too bad. Maybe say, oh no, now these tires are dead. The tire engineers may not be happy about that half spin, but the 9 car and the crew there are going to be very happy that they don't find the wall. They think we got more cars loose coming towards pit entry and speed.
Yeah, all of them, it looks like, just got around the proper pit speed as everyone ducks down. O'Rourke is going to lead them down this time. Also amongst that mix, remember Coleman, who smacked the wall. Rivera also, who's had a quiet run this time around, is going to duck into the pits. So just about everybody has now come into the pits in the past 3 laps. Not many drivers quite yet are looking to stretch it quite yet. Just a couple drivers have stayed on out. Larry Pace leading that driver group right now on the racetrack amongst the drivers who have stayed out so far.
And a handful of the drivers that have stayed out are drivers with damage. You see Brian Boris Cook out there currently second with a very disfigured Judge Judy on the hood of that machine. A couple other drivers as well. Doug Roth. EJ's got some damage on his car. Of course, he's already been down pit road. Chad Coleman. All these guys that may have stayed out on towards the racetrack here late.
Trouble in the front stretch. Jason Barham had to run all the way through the grass and was the first pit car stop drivers. So we nearly just had a caution, in fact, come out because Jason Barham went scavenging through the grass as you look at Coleman coming out of the pits. So you're looking at Barham now, who's had some troubles today, had a bit of contact before. This time, after scraping the wall, decides to go for a bit of an excursion, but a heck of a save nonetheless by the 83.
Yeah, driving through the grass is not typically the greatest strategy that you could go for here at Fontana, but he still ended up going for it. A little bit of 3 wide behind our current leader, Chad Coleman, Nelson Rivera, and Anthony Calantoni, all a part of this as they stream through turn 2. They're going to get that sorted out, but now it's really just a race of when these final guys come down pit road. How does all of our race leaders end up fanning out after this cycle of pit stops have ended up planning themselves out?
Right now at this point, Larry Pace leading the group of drivers staying out. He has a whole glob of cars about to try and battle the way back to the lead lap. This is 16th on back on the racetrack at the moment, led by Chad Coleman. They'll all go on the inside. Pace will let them on by, with Rivera diving on by, Caplatoni driving by, O'Rourke driving by, Terroso coming in as multiple drivers go to the inside. Rivera and Coleman getting very loose in the apex of 1 and 2 on the inside line. So they will lose some time, but a heck of a save by a couple different drivers there.
This is what gets so difficult at this phase of the race. You got these drivers that are trying to make strategy calls staying out. You got drivers making strategy calls coming down and in and getting new tires, and other people that have already made that call all cycling out on the racetrack at the same time. So it's so interesting to see. Just taking a look, by the way, I think our big winner of the strategy as it looks thus far seems to be Joshua Williams. He is well ahead of Anthony DeBarro, the likes of Comstock and Jacoby. Only drivers that I think you can really consider in the same cycle or the same sort of part of the racetrack before they came down pit road would be Brandon Bowie. Remember, he came down pit road nearly 20 laps or so earlier. So Josh Williams is currently cycling 2 seconds per lap quicker than Bowie. Bowie's only about 5 seconds up the road.
This is getting very interesting for sure. You're looking towards Brandon Bowie right now, the first driver to duck in 15 laps, in fact, earlier on. You're seeing him 26 seconds back of the leader, but again, net P1 is where he is. Joshua Williams, net P2 behind him. 5 seconds back last time. Larry Pace leading a group of multiple drivers trying to stretch the strategy. Pace, Cook, Ruth, Keaton, Leah, and Campbell are the only 6 drivers left who have not hit for one final time so far in this strategy.
These guys really pushing it. And I can't blame them. A couple of these guys have damaged cars. This is the only way they're probably going to really be able to salvage a good finish here, is be able to catch a caution and get back on cycle. So, you know, all fair to these guys, these 6 drivers doing their best trying to keep themselves out there and, you know, not coming down pit road just yet, but I think that window is likely. What do you? Oh,
David Comstock has spun in turn 1, going sideways, drawing the caution flag after contact with Jason Jacoby. So this just blew this race wide open here on Race Spot. As you look at your replay, Jacoby and Comstock, 2 different strategies. Comstock with damage. Sideways goes Comstock. Caution flag comes out. And now we redeck the field just like that.
What a move there. Watching that back, Jason Jacoby. It was definitely an aggressive move there, for sure. Justin, I think Jason made that move a little bit late. The term dive bomb maybe normally used a little bit on the roadside racing that I'm used to, but I feel like Jason, he kind of ducked out at the last possible moment to ever be able to make that move, and I think he's only ever going to put Comstock around the way that, at least at this phase of the race, I don't think David's expecting Jason to be that aggressive. Yeah, inside of 30 laps to go, you're going to be aggressive, but I don't know. I think that was a little bit over-aggressive there by Jason.
Possibly, and as well, you got to think, too, coming down there as well, was Comstock probably not expecting, as you said there. So a lot of drivers ducking in. This is going to really help a lot of drivers with strategy. Pace, along with Cook, as well as Roth, pardon me, all coming in. Remember, Roth with some damage, Cook with some damage. Pace does not have damage and was having some good pace in the top 10 before pulling the strategy card, as well as Donnie Leah.
Trey Edson stayed out, question mark?
So this is interesting here. You just mentioned there, Trey Edson had pit on lap 91. So he's in the 7th spot. Last time as everyone was ducking into the pits, that's going to be updated. Michael Keaton also stayed out. So 8-lap tires now for Trey Edson. If he elects to stay out, Larry Pace, meanwhile, Doug Roth, Cook, Leah, rounding out the drivers, along with, guess who got the big-time game, Brandon Bowie. But the possible loser here, if this goes the way it possibly could be Edson.
Yeah, I really don't understand this call from Edson at all. Everyone is going to be on new tires. I understand he has 8 laps, but where was he before this pit cycle happened? He's currently... If he was 7th, this call makes no sense.
Remember, he was battling for the lead for a majority of that long green flag run. We're approaching where the restart is going to be about 20 laps to go. At this point, I gotta agree with you, and if he does not elect to dive in, it could be interesting. However, the way this does work out is Keaton dives on in. We're going to see here if he does elect to stay out. In terms of that number 10 of Edson, he does stay out. So that's the gamble big time that we talked about. But the big gainers of this strategy, Brandon Bowie, Larry Pace, among the drivers who were able to somewhat make it work and stay in the top 10 by stretching it for so long and are undercutting the rest of the leaders.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be really interesting to see how this all pans out, especially, I mean, some of the guys who were leading and were potentially in it to win this race are behind some slower traffic. Talk about Brandon Bowie, Anthony DeBarro, Josh Williams, Jason Jacoby. Those guys, they're trapped behind the likes of Donnie Leah, Brian Boris Cook, Doug Roth, Larry Pace. Then, of course, eventually Trey. Those are your leading cars after Michael Keaton came down on towards pit road. But I don't know. I think Trey had too fast of a car to warrant ever staying out like this. I don't think there's enough traffic behind him that was ever going to stay out of this phase of the race. When you're talking to 20 laps to go, he needs to catch a lot of restarts. And, you know, we talked about nearly 30 laps ago, 40 laps ago now, actually, at the halfway mark. All it takes is one long green flag run to wipe the time discrepancy out of this. We now have pretty much a half an hour to do 20 laps of racing. I don't think there's any situation this race ends under time.
Yeah, I think this is pretty safe as long as it doesn't become a caution-precaution situation. I have to agree with you. The only thing I can think about is, remember, there was a 6-lap run in the first half of this race where multiple drivers, remember, took 2 tires. They got lucky with the caution just before the halfway point. That's the only thought process where a lot of the drivers who took 2 were very difficult to pass after 5 laps. Do you think that might be something Edson might bank on as they come towards 1 to green this time?
It could be, maybe, but those drivers at least had a set of 2 new tires on the right-hand side after what was a relatively short run. So now he's out there, even though the tires aren't old, instead of having a set of left side tires that were a handful of laps old and a set of right sides that are new, he just has 4 handful of lap old tires, and that's a disaster. Speaking of disaster, whatever's happening in the middle of the field, they need to get themselves warmed up because they're 1 to green, and basically from about 5th on back, the outside line is just not even formed up. So hopefully it's not an awkward accordion situation as they get the way up here. But I don't know. It's a ballsy call here from Edson. I think he's pretty much he's going to need at least 1, probably 2 cautions to be able to win this thing. Otherwise, I think he's going to be seeing himself somewhere around like 15.
This is a heck of a gamble. We'll have to see how this works out. You see that middle portion of the field working its way out. Multiple drivers waved around. Currently 33 drivers now with the lead lap after the wave arounds. But Trey Edson with a big-time gamble in the first spot. Larry Pace is on the outside in second. Doug Roth with severe damage on the front bumper, and the number 43 machine will start third, while Brian Boris Cook will start fourth. Donnie Leo rounds out the top 5. Brandon Bowie in 6th. DeBarro and Williams rounds out the top 8. As they approach the restart zone, it's time to buckle up. 19 laps to go at Auto Club as we're back underway in Fontana, and a heck of a restart for Edson. Pulls away as Larry Pace dives to the inside and blocks the inside line of Rock.
Yeah, but then he swings right back to the outside. That 43 car is going to try to pin it to the bottom, but will not be able to. Edson gets the start he needs, and now he needs to hope and pray that the slower traffic can hold up the faster cars long enough for him to stretch a margin. They're doing a good job fanning out nearly 3-1. You see DeBarro fanning back and forth, the 41 as well, sawing at the wheel left and right, trying to find an open door, and there isn't one, as all of your quicker cars are now pinned down to the inside. And look at the run Larry Pace gets and how quickly he's reeled in. Trey Edson is trouble.
Williams gets clipped from the back bumper of DeBarro in their side-by-side draft, and they're tangling down the front stretch. Williams loses a heck of a lot of time, able to save it, but stays just outside the top 10 regardless. So a heck of an amount of spots lost. Meanwhile, the 43 and Roth still trying to defend on the inside of Brandon Bowie. This is currently a battle to get into the top 5 right now, with Roth driving the David Catter, their tribute machine on the inside line. Bowie with the least amount of damage, defending, but they gotta worry because DeBarro and O'Rourke are both gonna try and charge here side by side, near door to door on the exit of turn 4.
And while we've been looking at all of this, look at the race lead. Larry Pace has taken it and run away from Trey Edson. So the 10 car has no speed at all on those old tires, and Larry has opened up a bit of a gap. DeBarro is sort of the first one as well, along with Bowie, trying to get through the slower traffic. The tightest 3 wide of the night coming off turn 2, and then the car spinning in the background. They're going to save it just about. No. Maybe not. That's going to be a yellow.
Shane Ewing spins down the backstretch as the caution flag is out, and now we approach the caution towards 16 to go for Ewing. Clips the bottom line, cannot keep it down, and now it's time for cautions breed cautions here with 27 minutes to finish off this race, as he'll fall all the way back to 33rd.
He's going to go well down the order. I think we'll be fine potentially some cautions, breed cautions. 23 minutes, I believe, as we're currently at a lap time, an hour and 37 minutes. So just over 23 minutes, 15 laps. Caution laps here are about a minute 40, so this could actually be tight. Cautions are a little longer than I thought they might have been, so we're going to be restarting with what, about 15 minutes to go thereabouts, maybe a little bit closer to 13 or 12. That'll take us to 11 laps to go. Another caution might end it, regardless if we hit the checkers or not.
Remember, the point of no return, so to speak, is around lap 5, around 5 to 4 to go here at Auto Club Speedway. Trey Edson, though, got absolutely lucky, though, with that quick caution. Lost a spot, was starting to lose time, in fact, to drivers like Cook, like booing from behind. But here is where the gamble is. No one ducking in right now. Jacoby fakes it. Everybody stays out on the older tires. Just a couple laps old, in fact, of just a total of 3 laps, including the pace lap.
Notable one coming in.
Yeah, Josh Williams, who win in the grass, mind you, so that is an understandable, I think, situation for Williams. But now, this is going to be nerve-wracking again, I think, especially for Edson. He's now in second, and now Larry Pace could be in line for a possible first victory of the season, depending on how things shape up, with some of the drivers that are faster having to deal with damaged cars behind them now.
Yeah, this is going to be a stressful restart. I mean, Larry seems to have actually very good speed. If I'm Larry Pace, I'm not really that bothered, especially with Trey Edson. I don't think Trey has any speed in that car at all, as old as those tires are, but obviously at this stage, you're never coming down pit road, so there's nothing Trey can do. Brian Boris Cook might be getting his way into a very cheeky win. If Boris ends up staying in the top 5 here, it's going to remind me of Terry Labonte winning a race at Bristol with a destroyed car after getting spun by Dale Earnhardt Sr. coming to the finish, because that car, just by the looks of it, has absolutely no right being in the top 3 within 20 laps to go of this thing.
Sometimes you get lucky, though, to be able to get yourself into the top 5 with that kind of a car. You remember, Doug Roth was in 6th spot. Is in 6th spot right now after being in the top 5 just before the caution. But part of my eye is kept on Anthony DeBarro, who was taking some very aggressive cuts through the field to try and get himself back up into a position where he can try and keep up with drivers like Pace and Edson and maybe battle for the race lead in the final moments if it stayed green. So he could be someone to watch on what could be one of the final restarts of the race tonight.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be an exciting restart. You have all these guys that are quicker with, especially, the guys that were out in front for the bulk of this race, the Jason Jacobys and Anthony DeBarros and Brandon Bowie's of the world, with the likes of Boris and Trey and Larry out in front of him. I mean, Larry's the only one that seems to have any relevant speed. Trey and Boris weren't very fast, and you have all these damaged cars that are sort of in front of the other guys, the likes of, look at Doug Ross. That 43 car is absolutely beat up. That's going to be you have to be aggressive getting around these guys to not lose too much time trying to keep with Larry.
I have to agree with you at this point. Larry, 6th in the point standings after the first 2 races, has been up towards the top 10 for majority of the green flag laps in all 3 events, it seems, so far. He's going to lead them along with Trey Edson when we get back into green. Cook, once again, Bowie is in 3rd, Bowie in 4th, DeBarro 5th, Roth in 6th, O'Rourke in 7th, with Jacoby, Silver, and Leah rounding out the top 10. Getting towards drivers like Donnie Leah, he lost the most spots out of that. He was in 6th spot in the last restart, lost 4 spots in the span of 3 laps, in part because it's been bounced on from both sides. Nearly got more door contact from an earlier caution, and now is dropping on back. So the former NASCAR Camping World Truck Series driver for 2 seasons, dropping on back with some of the damage here.
Yeah, so damage, as we've been saying all night, is a huge factor here. Let's see, light should be going off, I imagine, on the pace car this time. If we get another lap here, it's actually going to be very, very important with the time. I think it should definitely be our one to go here right now, and that is definitely what it's going to be. So inside of 19 minutes, just as they come across the line, 18 and a half minutes as they come across the line, that'll be 17-ish minutes when they end up getting the green flag here shortly. So 17 minutes to do 12 laps of racing. It's going to be very, very tight here on the time.
For those who are just tuning in here on RaceSpotTV for the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Winter Series, the reason we're discussing a time limit is these races are designed to last an hour and a half in length, on average for each of the events. With some of the cautions tonight, we are approaching the 2-hour limit set for the 120-lap race tonight. That is still a very slight factor here tonight. There looks to be enough time to possibly get this race done either under yellow or under green. But for these drivers, it's going to get interesting. A total of 34 drivers on the lead lap after Tyler Overstreet was the wave-around car on this past caution as we approach the restart zone into turns 3 and 4. Once again, Larry Pace in the 00 is the control car in the Chevrolet on the inside line. On the outside, on 8-lap-old tires on the previous restart, Trey Edson. He's going to have to go through now a second heat cycle for a restart on the outside line. Cook and Bowie in row 2, DeBarro and Roth in row 3, O'Rourke and Jacoby in row 4. As we approach the restart zone, the pace car's off the racetrack. Once again, Pace the control car. He's off and away. We're back green. We have a grand total of 12 laps to work with. As DeBarro's trying to get a huge run, able to get a great start behind the back end of the 63, already back to the outside.
See what happens as they go through 1 and 2 here. Where's DeBarro going to go? He's probably stuck up top. There's a bit of a checkup out front that might just bring in the likes of Bowie enough for DeBarro. Trey Edson gets stuck down low, so the 2 faster cars up top. Larry Pace, I think days are numbered. They're going to go down the back straightaway in towards turn 3. Bowie thought about sending it out the outside, but not quite enough room as Larry Pace somewhat cut the move off. Coming to 11 laps to go, they come off turn 4.
11 laps to go this time by as they head towards the flag stand. Bowie cuts towards the apron. Pace will try and match. Edson still holds on to the inside line, but DeBarro has the possible position on the outside. Backs up the corner this time. He'll try and dive it in towards the middle line as you look on board the 63. He's forced to the outside line with O'Rourke on the inside line battling for 5th. Meanwhile, DeBarro up in front of them. He moves himself into P number 3. So the top 3 on fresh tires have been able to get around Edson. Now, the question is, who's going to lead when the checker flag flies? They head towards the exit of turn number 4. The top 3 pulls on away. 10 laps to go this time by for race number 3 of the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Winter Series.
Look at Jacoby trying to make moves work down on the apron. He's fighting with that 43 car of Doug Roth at the moment. That's back in the A spot. Nick Silver, EJ O'Rourke, Trey Edson stuck up top. He's going the wrong way. Anthony DeBarro is trying to get to the rear of that 88 car of Brandon Bowie. I see spinners in turns 1 and 2. We're getting a yellow.
And a big one at the back of the field. Steve Shahan, who has had a heck of a rough day today in the 66 Twitch car, has spun around once again. Second caution involved in today at the back of the field. Jimmy Coleman also in the area, as you see here. I think that was in part caused by spinning cars in front. Checkups abound. Around goes the 66 to trigger the caution.
Yeah, seems like it. I think there were a couple cars, maybe not spinning, but definitely loose, and that checked up that back to the field, and Steve was definitely the big loser in that one, going around and making contact with a couple of cars. What does this do with the time, though? 15 minutes. What we're inside of 14 and a half from this point. We have 8 laps to go. At a roughly 1:40 a car. This is going to be really, really tight with the time and with the lap count. I think we should be able to end this under green. Of course, that's assuming we don't get a caution on, say, lap 117, 118.
Right now, there is 8.5 total laps to go as they reach the pace car down the back stretch. Last time, no drivers ducked down the pit, even Edson, who stayed out on 8-lap-old tires after a couple restarts now. So this is going to be the big time gamble. This will be guaranteed the final restart of the race when we get back under green, as we'll have under 5 laps to go when we get towards the green flag once again. Pace getting really close to the pace car. He's not ducking down. No one's ducking down, so no one taking any gambles. We'll all stay out on old tires. Donnie Leah thinks about it. The rest of the field, though, all staying in except for a couple of snake sitters in the back.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the situation here. There's no way you come down pit road unless you're at the very, very back of the field and try something. Maybe you have damage. you know, if you get the last little bit of that repaired, if you can get 4 tires, maybe you can pass a couple of cars. So no surprise seeing the last handful of drivers coming on towards pit road, but all the strategy is pretty much done and over with. The question is now, can Larry Pace get the restart he needs to get to hold out to lap 120 if he needs to even hold out that far?
Thing is, he's got 2 fast cars that are going to bring your start beside him or right behind him in Brandon Bowie as well as Anthony DeBarro as Jonathan Lockhart zooms on by as the lucky dog. But this is going to get very interesting now. So the top 4 have all gone by Trey Edson. So now Larry Pace does not have Edson to work with as a pick. What do you expect Pace to try and do when the pressure is on when we get back on our green with drivers trying to go either to his outside or dive possibly 3 wide down the backstretch to try and secure the victory tonight?
You're going to probably see the most aggressive racing we're going to see all night. So I think that it's pretty much going to be no holds barred here. I mean, we've seen drivers already be aggressive here tonight. A lot of moves getting thrown, of course, which you'd expect to see, especially getting into these later phases of the race. But now faster drivers have cycled through the slower ones. The only one he may say who's not up to speed of the likes of Bowie and DeBarro and EJ and Trey is going to be that one driver of Larry Pace. So those few names, if they get to him, they are not going to hold back trying to get around that 00 car.
The fastest lap time for those curious in this race, the track has stayed at about the same temps since the drop of green flag base for around 78 to 76 degrees in the night sky as we start at very low dusk before heading to the full lights tonight. 40.596 once again the fastest time. Multiple drivers now behind him. In fact, 2 at the top 4 had faster times than Larry Pace. And DeBarro and O'Rourke in terms of the fastest laps for them of the day. Trey Edson has the fastest time of the race overall, but is on older tires, which will not be a factor in this situation. 2 to go into the restart now as they work their way behind the pace car. But at this point, for a lot of our drivers, I think it's just trying to get a recovery drive because you have guys like Cohen who's dicing up at the front, who is now all the way back in 10th. Williams, who went off in the grass after contact from the behind from DeBarro. He's all the way back in 18th spot. Nelson Rivera ran in the top 10 at the start of the race and for the first half of the race, all the way back 16th. Now it's put or show it time.
Definitely is. You have to put up or show up for sure, especially at this phase of the race. It's nothing else you can do. It's basically getting, I mean, we're just rambling on, making the same points over and over. The race is about to be over. These guys are going to be driving really, really hard, wanting to win this thing, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch and to cast as they get here closer to the end.
I think so too. So right now we're coming to 6 laps to go officially on the track towards 1 to go. It will race the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Winter Series. The lights on the pace car this time by are out. Larry Pace chooses the inside line. Brandon Bowie will move to the outside line. So a lot of fast cars here going to line back on up. Remember, Edson on older tires still in the 5th spot. He'll have Nick Silver to his...
That'd be really, really exciting if he ended up winning, just because he'd be coming from P8. All the drivers in front of him, I think, are close enough to the front that it's relatively reasonable that they could potentially win this thing. But I think Jason's the only one with the speed far enough back that'd be a real eye-opener if he potentially ended up winning this thing. And talking about strategy calls for points, Nick Cohen, after making that early decision at halfway to get the bonus points, he's only recovered his way for top 10 to the top 10, so he might be kicking himself for that decision as well.
They're approaching their way towards the restart zone on the exit of turn 4. The final restart of the race. 5 laps to go to decide the winner tonight. Pace on the inside line. Outside is Brandon Bowie. Off and away goes Pace as we're back on our way. Green flag waves at the flag stand. 5 laps to go in Fontana.
Inside of 5 to go, and we are green. How long is that going to last, though? As Larry Pace is going to go right up to the outside wall and cut it down low. DeBarro wants the inside, and he wants second as he's fighting with Brandon Bowie. Bowie will have the momentum up top, and they will be nose to tail, peeling down the back straightaway. DeBarro down low, little loose. The 41 gets into him. They're going to be 3 wide for second, potentially. This is exactly what Larry Pace wants to be seeing in his rearview mirror, as DeBarro's down low, Edson in the middle, and Bowie's up top.
O'Rourke right on the right rear quarter panel. Barrow slides up the racetrack, will slot back to 4th. Meanwhile, the battle for second about to heat up as Brandon Bowie now has to defend Anthony DeBarro, who's been one of the fastest cars on the racetrack for the final 20 laps.
Caution!
Spinning caution flag is out. Caution flag through the tri-oval as multiple cars wreck. And the winner for tonight's race will be Larry Pace under yellow because of this incident. You'll see on the RaceSpotTV replay.
What a big wreck. I'm still not exactly sure what happened other than seeing a bunch of cars going spinning through down in towards the infield. Still trying to see exactly what occurred. It was a 20 car that initially kicked it off. He was the first one to go around, Chad Coleman. How did this happen? Who was that behind him? I think it was Joey Gattina who got into him.
Let's look at this once again as you see Coleman, Leah, Gattina in the middle of your screen. And you see the contact with Gattina. You were right there, made the contact, spun him around, and then nowhere for drivers to go in the 20 downward range for positions to bring out the caution flag. But for Larry Pace, he'll come away as the victor tonight in the 00 machine. Still 3 laps to go underneath that mark until he gets his checker flag for the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Winter Series. But one strategy call to try and stay out as long as he could. Gamble for the caution, pays off. He gets his first victory of the season.
And what a run for Larry to be able to make that happen. He qualified 4th, and after this sort of opening kind of salvo of this race, he was kind of just out of the loop with the front guys, never on the same strategy, or he just fell back just a little bit. But this last caution sequence happened. He makes the strategy call to stay out late. He gets his way up front, and I think he had the right mix of being at the right place at the right time and having a car that was clean to be able to hold on, because the only other drivers that made the calls he did late in this race and made the same strategy decisions had big damage, and they were really nowhere near him in terms of contention. It was only Brandon Anthony, or likely EJ, who I incorrectly called Trey when they were nearly going 3 wide, that were ever going to take this race away from him the way it panned out.
Absolutely, at this point, 2 laps to go as we'll finish under caution. But it's a question of what if for, I think, a few different drivers. Brandon Bowie was also having a heck of an undercut that could have worked. Potentially, he was up in front by about 5 seconds at the time of that caution. That helped Larry Pace. Anthony DeBarro had a heck of a pace, so to speak, in the 27 to finish off 3rd. There was a heck of a lot of good drivers tonight, to say the very least. Pace, Bowie, DeBarro, your top 3. O'Rourke in 4th. Nick Silva rounding out the top 5. So at this point, I think maybe if there was an extra couple laps, do you think we might have seen Bowie or DeBarro maybe challenged with the way they were fighting so hard in P2?
Definitely hard to say. I mean, I think they would have been relevant. They would have made it, I think, a bit harder on Larry, but I don't know if they 100% would have gotten by him, because they weren't going to relent on one another either. So it wasn't a sure and cut thing. So I will say I think one of the big drivers is probably coming away thinking what if from this one is probably the driver Jason Jacoby. We've seen Jason now pretty much 3 races in a row. Be competitive, potentially be throwing his hat in for a win, and ended up tonight just finishing just outside the top 5 with a 7th place finish. He's having one of those really frustrating starts to a season where you're competitive and you have good pace and you're running up near the front, but you just can't put everything together and really get nice, strong. Not that 7th place is a bad finish, but I think the way he's been running, would be really happy to have a win right now, especially compared to some of the people that have been finishing out in front of him, haven't really had that same speed.
White flag is out as we finish this race under caution. Getting back to Katina, he has blown his engine, so we'll have an extra DNF for this race. It's also, I think, a what if for some of the newcomers in terms of drivers who have made either one start or making the first start of the season. Josh Williams was dicing up in the top 5 for parts of the race, finishes off 16th. Donnie Leah was able to play the strategy card as well, dropped back to 14th before that final caution, having some contact with the final caution too. It was a case of a lot of drivers making things interesting. Not only that, there's a possibility we may see a new points leader after this. We'll have to make sure 100%. But David Comstock finished off 11th after being the points leader by just a couple points entering tonight's race. He finished once again 11th.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of drivers who, I mean, especially David, after the run he put in at Vegas, he hasn't really followed it up in the last 2 rounds. So, regardless, the man of the day is definitely that number 00 car of Larry Pace. He put in one heck of a performance late in this thing, and against all odds was able to hold on to that victory. He's getting ready to take that checker as he comes across to start finish for the final time.
Larry Pace will follow his way behind the Pace car, with Brandon Bowie following on behind for the top 2. DeBarro will finish off 3rd today. O'Rourke, Silver, Edson, Jacoby, Cook, Cohen, and Terrell rounding out your top 10. But for today, Larry Pace, coming into today 6th in the point standings, will get victory number 1 of the 2018-19 season tonight. He gets the victory in Fontana, his first victory in 2018-19.
He's going to accelerate on away from the field, saying, I want as much room as I can to do some donuts. And that 00 Sim500 Kickass beef jerky car is going to burn him down, I am sure, after what was probably a very, very thrilling victory for him. Probably really difficult having the likes of Bowie and DeBarro bearing down on you like that at the end of one of these races. He's probably the only one happy to see that caution flag wave.
I think so too at this point. Still flooring it around the racetrack for his celebratory burnout. Pace coming away as the victor tonight after starting off the season with a fairly decent run. As mentioned, 6th in the points, 2 top 10s prior to this race. Good pace and speed. He'll make the burnout on top of the Auto Club of Southern California logos and go into a dizzy spell. Larry Pace, able to have the pace he needed to come away with the checkered flag, is your winner tonight. And let's look at your final results here for tonight's action, why don't we? Able to come away with the victory, Pace, as mentioned, over Brandon Bowie tonight. Anthony DeBarro was also having a fast pace in the final moments of this race. Finishes 3rd tonight. E.J. O'Rourke will finish off 4th, with Nick Silver rounding out the top 5, his first top 5 of the season. Trey Edson is in 6th to finish off the race after gambling and staying out on old tires. Couldn't keep the lead like he wanted before Larry Pace made the pass before calamity happened on the lap that the pass happened. Jacoby, Cook, Cohen, and Terrell rounding out your top 10 tonight with some good pace, but some what-ifs in the mixture for the field in the next portion of the track. Below that in the 11th spot tonight, David Comstock having a question of what if. Doug Ruth as well tonight. Kelly Leah also mixed up outside of that group with Nelson Rivera, Joshua Williams, Scott Simley, Timothy Johnson, Anthony Caltoni, and Milt Matisse rounding out the top 20. As the rest of your grid shows on your screen, and a few DNFs in total for tonight's action, a total of 7 drivers did not make the checker flag either on the lead lap or were in the garage stalls. Now at this point, it's about maintaining momentum. Just the first of 2 2-mile circuit races on the season, and you have to focus next on the road course side, I think here, Randy. A lot of drivers looking to possibly carry momentum from this point on.
Yeah, you definitely need to carry momentum through here, especially going in towards the next couple races, and especially going in before that Christmas break. Having the Daytona Roval thrown in there, like I said, a track a lot of people might be familiar with, especially on the oval side. They'll sort of toss their hats into the ring for that one just because everyone has the Daytona Oval. But a lot of people have not run stock cars around this place, and I've seen them run before, and it was not pretty.
And that's going to be something we might have to discuss with our top 3 tonight. Tonight's race winner, Larry Pace, is standing by and is ready to celebrate. Coming away with his first victory of the season, first top 5, 3rd top 10 overall. Larry Pace is your winner for tonight's action here on RaceSpotTV and joins us into the broadcast booth now. Larry, congratulations on the victory tonight. How are you feeling after being able to hold off multiple drivers with a very wild final 25-plus laps?
I'm feeling good. Just glad it's over. That was a long race. Yeah, I'm ecstatic. I did not expect to come into California. It's a track I really don't like and win it. So, yeah, this went about as good as it could have.
Yeah, definitely at this point. I want to ask you, of course, in part, how the strategy, of course, worked out. You extended the strategy as long as you could, stayed out, and got the caution you needed to stay up towards the front. What was the decision to make that strategy call to ensure that you would be up towards the front for the rest of the race?
Well, I wasn't too happy with where I was running when everybody started peeling off to pit, and I've won a few races with this strategy thanks to John Prather. So I just thought, well, would I rather finish sixth or try to win? So I tried to win, and it worked out.
It absolutely did work out here tonight. Of course, first victory of the season. The next thing, though, is carrying this momentum. You've had a total, including this one, 3 top 10s, 1 top 5 in the victory. Going to Daytona this time, next week. How comfortable do you feel about Daytona? A much different track, of course, than 2 Mile circuit like Fontana.
Well, the pressure is definitely off. That's really it. There's no pressure at all. I can go in, just kind of see what happens. Don't have to worry about it for really the rest of the season. I definitely want to try to win as many as I can, but yeah, no pressure, and I'm happy about it.
That's good that there's no pressure here. Real quickly, is there anyone you want to thank before you let you get going and celebrate?
Yeah, I got to thank Steve Sheehan. He didn't have the best race tonight, didn't go well for him, but he was a big part of me kind of getting up to speed here. He hosted a session for me last night, and we practiced a bit, and that definitely helped. My manager, Adam, for letting me out of work an hour early so I could come do this today. That's a huge thanks to Adam. Everybody at Sim500, Kickass Beef Jerky, wouldn't be able to do any of this without them, and really glad we are.
Thank you very much for the time, Larry. Congratulations on a huge victory tonight.
Thank you.
And that was Larry Pace, your winner tonight. First victory on the 2018-19 campaign for the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Winter Series. Of course, standing by as well as our second place finisher tonight, Brandon Bowie, who had a good pace, also is changing up things strategy-wise. I believe our own Randy Chinnis is now standing by. Randy?
I am indeed stood by with the driver of the number 88 car. And Brandon, you went for a bit of an interesting strategy coming towards that last run. You were the first one to end up peeling off down on towards pit road. Talk me through your decision there.
Yeah, honestly, I was kind of hoping that the strategy would kind of work my way, and kind of when everybody started to pit, maybe let it stay green for a little bit. And it did. And let me kind of get out the lead, let it kind of shuffle to me, the leader, and then a caution come out. That was the goal. Of course, it didn't work that way. Caution came out earlier, which was still fine. But I just trying to shake it up. I didn't have anything for them on the short run. I could kind of run the same pace with them on the long run, but I knew if I pitted around the same lap as them, I was going to be in trouble. So I was just trying anything and everything at that point.
Now, with this race being on a 2-mile racetrack and having really a pretty high lap count for what you guys typically run in this series, normally you see about 130 laps on the 1.5 milers. That usually peels off to about 200 or so miles. Here, a 240-mile race in the 2-hour time limit saw things get very, very tight. How did the last half of the race, how did your strategy really change, knowing that there was at least at lap 60, it looked like that this race was going to end under the time limit rather than the lap limit?
Actually, it got kind of interesting because the goal was we need to stay green and try to, at the same time, stay green but manage the tires. Because if you came in with a possibility that maybe some people might try even 2 tires. So that strategy kind of came into play as a possibility. But, as it kind of went on, I kind of saw that maybe 2 tires wasn't going to really work. Even with putting less fuel in it, I just felt like the balance wasn't going to be there. So it was definitely a nail-biter at the end. Cautions, I really wasn't expecting that many cautions this race, honestly. It just seemed like a lot of mistakes were made this week. Hopefully, next week, we're going to a road course next week, so there will not be any cautions. So that'll be interesting to go back and watch how that race unfolds. Hopefully I'm in the winner's circle this time instead of finishing second again.
Yeah, the Daytona road course is definitely going to be an interesting one, and I think you're going to be a contender for sure, Brandon. But thank you for joining us, and congrats on the second place finish. Before we let you go, who gets it done for that number 88 RacingBids.com car?
Well, first, I want to take a second to say my condolences to the David Cater family and all his people that he races with, all his friends and everything. It's a huge loss for the iRacing community. He did a lot for me in my beginning of my career on iRacing, trying to learn how to build setups. And just racing with him was always a blast. You ask him a question, he would always have an answer for you. And if he didn't have an answer for you, he would say, "I'll get back to you and let you know." So truly gonna miss that guy. He was, like I said, he was a great asset to the iRacing community. We got to thank the broadcast, of course, RaceSpot, Kickass Beef Jerky for sponsoring the league, Commodore's Garage for helping me become a better driver, RacingBids.com, check them out. They sell memorabilia, NASCAR stuff, all types of stuff. They also have a auction on Thursdays. If you check them out on Facebook, you can place a bid, win some really, really cool stuff. Got to thank my family, and I got to thank the man above.
There was Brandon Bowie. He came away with a big second-place finish tonight. Next up on the interviews, going to be third-place finisher Anthony DeBarro. He stood by with Justin Prince.
Yes, DeBarro joins us here in the broadcast booth, coming away in the top 3 tonight. Led some laps at times here. DeBarro, talk about how you were able to keep up the pace that you had for a majority of the race tonight.
Just all about keeping that right front tire cool and hitting your marks and not giving it too much throttle and sliding it up off the corner. It's basically that long run how I was able to pull away. And if I didn't get that late caution after our green flag pit stop, I think I had that race in hand. But you got to be lucky in these deals too.
I have to ask you about that actually too. You mentioned you had to get lucky a little bit. How did that mix things up for you? Because it looked like you were working very hard to try and work your way through the field once we reached the 20 laps to go mark, under caution around that mark, to try and get back up to where you were.
Well, at that point, it's just elbows out and go as hard as you can and don't care about your tires. So it's just getting to the outside of guys was really what I noticed. It's the only way to make any passes, because if you were on the inside, they would just pinch down. And if you were going to push on the inside, you'd be in their door, and that would cause a wreck. We had a lot of those tonight.
Yeah, I do have to ask this as well, of course. There was a bit of a time crunch in terms of the 2-hour limit set for tonight's race. What kind of pressure, if there was any, that you maybe felt and could notice amongst the field? As Bowie had mentioned, it was more bit calmer / tire conserving. What was your take on it?
Well, you have different races up front. There's a lot of guys that can race together closer, and then you get back in the back, and it was very easy to drive. It just was the fact that if you're going to overdrive it or not. So a lot of guys, I don't know what happened with a lot of the wrecks, but it sounds like a lot of people are driving to each other's doors. I know a lot of guys are crossing over too, and that gets you aggravated pretty well.
Absolutely. Very quickly, Daytona road course next week. Your thoughts on the road course and your confidence there real quick.
I'm ready. Bring it on. I love road courses.
We'll see if you can show that confidence and see if you can get to victory lane. Real quick, anyone you want to thank before we let you get going here tonight?
Yeah, the guys at Sim500 and you guys at the booth. Your broadcast is awesome. And obviously Dizzy Motorsports, looking forward to running the whole season next year with them in the Cup Series.
Congratulations on the top 3 tonight. Anthony DeBarro finishing 3rd.
Thank you.
Thank you very much once again, Anthony DeBarro, coming away with the top 3 here tonight in a wild race overall. Of course, in this race, it was a mixture of different strategies, different takes, and so forth. Or, if okay, we can maybe bring in one final take from the 4th place finisher tonight, EJ O'Rourke. Randy Jennett's going to be standing by with him. Randy?
I'm stood by with EJ, the driver of that number 41 machine. EJ, a pretty good run for you all in all. I think your best run in the series thus far. Take me through the first race under the lights here this season.
Man, it was scary. A lot of grip on the racetrack. Just I qualified good, about time, because I usually suck at qualifying. I laid down a good lap, which got me track position early and kind of helped me stay up there, within the top 10 or so the whole race.
Now, it's coming up, and we haven't really asked any of the other drivers yet. It's nearly Christmas time. What's on your Christmas list?
Oh, man, about 2 tenths. I wish I can get 2 more tenths.
Don't we all? That's Mr. E.J. O'Rourke. Good run tonight. E.J. has a lot of fun watching that Kickass number 41 out there, putting on a very, very good show. Nice 3 wide near the end of the race as well. Who gets it done for that 41 car?
I just want to give a shout out to Jason Barham and everyone at Kickass Beef Jerky. I appreciate everything they've done for us in this league and everyone at Sim500. But this week we're racing with heavy hearts as we lost David Cater on Monday. He was a really big guy in the sim racing and iRacing world, and even before iRacing. So it's sad that that happened, and wish the best for him and his family.
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate for sure. Really big loss there, David. I remember watching some of his setup videos back in the day, back when I had my my not so, let's say, dreams that didn't come true of trying to become an oval racer. But there he was, Mr. E.J. O'Rourke, Justin, and get ready and heading towards Daytona, the first and only road course on the schedule that'll be bringing us to the Christmas break.
Thank you very much. As to get to what Brandon Bowie and EJ O'Rourke were saying, of course, as you look at your unofficial results, of course, many drivers with heavy hearts in the iRacing community. As mentioned, Doug Roth running a tribute scheme tonight, running the number 43 STP Chevrolet, which was the scheme that David Cater had ran for a lot of his races throughout the iRacing community. Someone that was, in fact, mixing up in the top 10 tonight. Of course, this week, on December the 10th, David Cater, a huge member of the iRacing community with setups, and a potential first ballot Hall of Famer for iRacing community members, passed away after a seizure. Having, of course, a big-time heavy hearts moment. Many drivers, including the drivers in this series, have had experience with him. Pro drivers had been inspired to get better and learn setups. Keegan Leahy, for example, Ray Alfalo with Real World Seminar experience, and many more. He touched every single member of the iRacing community and helped anyone who asked for help. His family is currently looking for support for funeral support, unfortunately, for the family currently raising money through GoFundMe. But right now, again, the community with heavy hearts currently arranging a charity race aimed for next week. But again, every single part of the iRacing Oval community grieving tonight and grieving throughout this week after a huge loss entering this week. With our heavy hearts, it's time to say goodnight for tonight's action here from Auto Club Speedway. You've been watching the Sim500 Kickass Beef Jerky Winter Series. Larry Pace is your winner once again tonight. Congratulations to Larry Pace, and congratulations to the rest of your top 10 tonight. Your official points leader just handed in now. Brandon Bowie has taken the points lead over Trey Edson by 1 point, with Jacoby and DeBarro 1 point separating each of them for the top 4, with David Comstock dropping his way back to 5th. And with the victory tonight, Pace is able to hold on his way to a top 6 in the point standings before we head to the Daytona Road Course next week. With that, for the rest of our crew, for Randy Chinnett, for Hugo Wee, and the rest of our sponsors and more, you've been watching RaceSpotTV. I'm Justin Prince saying so long and have a wonderful night. You've been watching the Kickass Beef Jerky Xfinity Winter Series for Sim500. We'll see you next week.